control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are, reveal your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching
Let your experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Superman, and we're the only ones who can be strong, but we break on command, 'cause women rule the world.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Said the deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Space Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, and thank you so much for tuning in and listening in at spacedoutradio.com and on Spreaker. As once again we come in from the frozen Canadian tundra, battle our way past the wild animals, sidestep Bigfoot, and enter Uncle Jimbo's cabin, stoke the fire, heat this place up, literally, it's cold here today, and broadcast you live on this Monday night, early Tuesday morning if you're on the East Coast. Here at Spaced Out Radio, we are broadcasting 3 hours a night, 7 days a week. Why? Well, we want to be your official one-stop shop when it comes to the paranormal, ufological, extraterrestrial, supernatural, and so much more. Hey, if you like our theme music, you can go to spacedoutradio.com and download any music you like from the guitar god himself, Ron Bumblefoot THAL, including his new album, Little Brother Is Watching. If you're on social media, follow us on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, and of course our website, which will have a beautiful new look coming up very soon, is spacedoutradio.com. At this time, as we do every night, we send a shout-out to our fans listening in on the SHR Media Network, in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, along with our fans on Facebook at Euphoria Chronicles, Forest Moon Paranormal, and the SOR Space Travelers, as well as online at Paranormal Forum. If you're a fan of Spaced Out Radio, coming very, very soon with our new look website is the Spaced Out Radio's Space Travelers membership, where for only $5 a month, yeah, just $5, you can win prizes, take part in private group interviews, have a special section on our website, and much more. Hey, we're going to give you a hell of a lot more than just access to our archives. Tonight's show is brought to you by Rivulet Reiki and Readings, providing healings in person or at a distance. PurplePlates.com, helping heal your body, mind, and soul. The new Agora newspaper is the official paper of this show. And the iTunes app, Spirit Storybox. It's the official ghost hunting app of Spaced Out Radio. The Alien Cosmic Expo is quickly creeping up, as in just a couple weeks' time, June 24th to 26th, in Brantford, Ontario, ACE will see the UFO world congregate for a weekend of disclosure. For many people in the know, and those who have already had some sort of ET contact, the one constant that everyone agrees to is that the experience has changed their lives. Now, it can be debated whether it's for the good or the bad. It really depends on the person. But it could be that contact is much more than just the experience itself. What about the history of humanity? How long ago did ETs find us? Did they help create life on Earth? What about the pyramids? How are they built? There are literally thousands of questions behind the door, and that's every door you open in this field, that jump out when you start going in depth. Has the government always known about them? Who's making contact? And the deep question, what do we really know about them? Well, tonight, we bring in Dr. Sasha Lessin and his wife, Janet. They're the experts on these subjects. They will be flying in all the way from Hawaii to take part in the ACE conference. We welcome in Dr. Sasha Lessin and Janet to Spaced Out Radio tonight. Doctor, how are you?
We're really having a good time. It's warm here in Maui. That's where we are.
Oh, yeah, rub it in. Rub it in. A week ago, it was like 90 degrees here. And I live, if you know the map of Canada, I live halfway up the province. So I'm in the middle of nowhere. When I stare outside, it's actually still light at 11 o'clock at night, which is kind of cool because I've never experienced that before since moving up here. But now, I almost need to bring my winter jacket back out. It's a horrible thing. Horrible. Let me tell you that. Janet, how are you doing?
I'm hot today. It's been very, very hot and humid, and I think we definitely have global warming because normally in Maui it's kind of perfect. But today I was going, oh, what is going on with the world? It's just hot and muggy. And anyway, so we live up the mountains, at the foothills of the West Maui Mountains, and we're in a tropical rainforest. So, and it gets dark here, around 7? Yeah, around 7 in summer. It gets dark early, all the time.
Andy Lloyd, one of the astronomers we work with, says that the global warming is, yes, indeed, 15% caused by what humans do, but that Nemesis, the binary of Solaris, is moving much closer, and all the planets are heating up. And this is a major contributor to global warming. It's an interesting perspective.
It is a very interesting perspective considering what is going on around the world. Now, Dr. Sasha, I want to start with you here for a moment because a lot of people, when they grow up, they don't expect to have alien contact. We are taught that it doesn't exist. We are taught that, for the most part, it's God and the devil, and whoever wins the battle wins your soul. Was there an experience that led you to all of a sudden start to study this field and try and figure out how we came together?
Oh, yes, indeed. And it's encoded in the word God. What I wondered when I was a kid was, how did Noah get all those animals that ordinarily wouldn't like each other they must have been close enough to his boat, within a few miles, on this boat, save everything. And it just was such a silly story. And then I wound up studying anthropology and becoming a professional anthropologist. And one of the mysteries was what was all these tales of the flood everywhere, and what was this all about? And I studied with a guy named Zechariah Sitchin, and we know what this was all about. And what we know, he was translating stuff from ancient Sumer from way long time ago about what these big guys who called themselves gods, but they weren't gods, they were just people like us, only bigger, and they lived longer, and they had high tech and some psychic powers. But they were just people, big people who had us call them gods, and we're just as smart as they are. They just were. It was a slave trip that they created. We'll get into the meat of that. But I came to realize that things that are in the regular Bible are ancient stuff, and each one of these gods, they weren't gods, dictated a different story. It would be just like having Ralph Nader and Henry Kissinger dictate the world, the history of the United States. So each one of these guys had hugely different takes on the whole thing, and they lied for their own advantage, and they hid things and all kinds of stuff. But it's really fun trying to unravel it. And that's what I'm in the stage in anthropology of what you call an ethnologist. That is, you take all the stuff you learned your whole life and you try to make some bigger sense out of it. And what I'm saying is that our traditions say from the get-go that there's been extraterrestrials, that Moses had this guy that landed his rocket ship and told him stuff to do. That you look at any tradition, you ask the Hopi or the Acoma, or you ask all over the globe, they'll all say these guys with flying chariots or submarines, or basically the words they had for spacecraft and submarine craft visited the Earth. Lots of places, lots of times, lots of different species. But the dominant species were these great big guys, and they took Bigfoot's ancestor and used genes from Bigfoot's ancestor because they were planted here before, and so that we would have certain advantages on this planet. And they have pitted us against each other as a slave race, and some of them have tried to help us, and some of us tried to keep us enslaved. But I'll let Janet wrap for a while.
And they're the Anunnaki.
And they're the Annunaki. Yes.
And I want to get into the Anunnaki here in a little bit. But Janet, how about you? Were you a believer in all this hocus pocus of ufology before you got together with Dr. Lessin?
I am the hocus pocus. I came in a full-on experiencer. I had extraterrestrials and interdimensionals and ghosts and paranormal. I came in conscious. I remembered many of the things before I became a physical being. I had to, the ETs came and kind of squelched that a little while so I could be a normal child. But I have the most extreme experiencer story. And basically, extraterrestrials are here. They walk among us. They can be sitting down and having tea with you. You wouldn't recognize some of them. There's millions of people. What is it, like 250 million? They estimate from the pre-research that's being done, the Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research on Extraterrestrial Experiencers, or I'm not sure the acronym, but it's called FREE.
Yes.
They've been doing a series of surveys and collecting data and finding, but people have been collecting data on all this since the 50s. Actually, what was that guy's name? The psychologist that the older fellow that did the anyway. There's several generations. This isn't the one we're thinking about it as. John Mack or the other one, but there was a previous generation. So back in the 50s, they've been doing surveys on the extraterrestrial presence. And they had a whole generation of experiencers in the 50s. And they had an open contact and get contact in the desert. They were talking about the Big Rock and how they used to have 20,000 people gathered at Big Rock, and people would see other people going up in crowds. And so this thing has been going on for a long time, but the government's been squelching it. And also we have the giggle factor and the self-policing society that prevents us from talking about it because they ridicule us and reject us.
Shamans and wise people throughout the ages have talked to ETs and people from the inner earth. This has been squelched by the Catholic Church and others, but it's there. It's written in our history, in the history of every culture. There are extraterrestrials that have been visiting Earth, that have been interacting and interbreeding with Earthlings. We have their skulls. We have elongated skulls. We have pear-shaped skulls. We have gray skeletons. They're in the gate at Pumapuca, just right next to Tiwanaku. You see there's this wall that shows all the interplanetary visitors that were going to and from and taking off from Nazca. There was this. We have the evidence. The evidence is overwhelming of a highly technical society that was present way before the flood, and of course after the flood too. And if you dig deep enough, there's human beings that have had several levels of extinction way before the current Anunnaki, who came 450,000 years ago and created our race 300,000 years ago, up-leveled it, so they said 200,000 years ago, and then ruled through Noah's son, and Noah was born 58,000 years ago, and the flood was 13,000 years ago, to sort of give you the big sweep.
Are you surprised, Dr. Lessin, that there is so much cover-up with today's technology in regards to the field?
Oh, no, I'm not. Absolutely not. When you have people in charge of national security, and they see what Tesla technology, the use of ley lines, the medical advantages can do for their military advantage, They can feed it back and forth to big business that gives them jobs and makes them part of this elite. They have a vested interest in continuing truth embargo, which is the president, of course, ultimately has some ability to unclassify some of this material, but she or he can always just shut it up by saying national security. And there was, a lot of concern with our military about the Soviets, so they pretended. But the real fear was of the whole fleet of Bodlander and other Antarctic disk anti-gravs that they had, and we had ours, thanks to the Serpo people, in time to stand off. But they were so there was continued security concerns by the United States that the public is totally unaware of. We've had bases on the moon and Mars for some time, and the Annunaki had bases in both those places. But perhaps I'm jumping ahead of us.
Well, we're going to get heavy into it. Now, Janet, one of the things you mentioned is you're an experiencer yourself. I'm an experiencer, and many of our listeners have had some sort of experience as well, albeit paranormal or ufological or extraterrestrial. Were you conscious when you had your experience?
I've had many conscious experiences, but what we find is that even within conscious contact, there's sometimes screen memories, and if you agree to be hypnotized by a competent hypnotherapist, it will not steal the ball, so to speak, but will just tarry with you as you go deeper into your experience, and you will uncover more and more details of what actually happened. So some of my experiences I've revisited over and over again, and each time I look at it, I figure out there's something else that happened. And so, yes, I've had contact all my life. I didn't really start going into hypnotherapy until I was in my 30s. Yeah, in my 30s. I finally had a couple hypnosis sessions. But I had, full recollection of many episodes, but I wasn't able to share it with anybody because when I did, I started getting that weird reaction, like what's going on there. I did have one friend, so to speak, that I could talk to a degree, which was my brother. My older brother was 7 years older than I. And in Pittsburgh, it was in the 50s. I was born in 1954. It was a hot spot of UFO activity. But I didn't just have lights in the skies and that type of thing. I would have them in my bedroom at night. And so what I would do is I would invite my friends to either sleep out with me in the summer, and I'm the type of contactee that if you're with me and you're doing like a skywatch thing, they will come down and you will see them. So as a child, many times I'd have a friend and I'd say, "Well, you want to see a UFO? Yeah. Well, we're gonna sleep out in the yard tonight, so it's not going to rain, and let's see what we see." Also with the ghosts and interdimensionals, and probably some of the things I was calling ghosts back in the 50s and 60s were really extraterrestrials or interdimensionals, but I wasn't sure how to categorize things back then because there wasn't a lot of information back in the 50s and 60s. I could go to the local bookstore, and you were lucky if you had one shelf full of UFO, paranormal, spirituality information. I don't know how old you are, but it was just kind of sad. And then gradually over time, we started to get like Betty and Barney Hill, and we had Bud Hopkins and other researchers start investigating this phenomena that's been going on basically all the way back to the Annunaki, if you really think about it, which is 450,000 years ago.
Yeah, they are ancient, that's for sure. When you were talking about your own experiences and being able to almost summon, if that's what we can call it, summoning, Janet,
mm-hmm.
Did you ever have an experience where you had a real close encounter within feet of you, within, say, 200 feet of you?
I've had sex with extraterrestrials, which was really weird.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I didn't like them doing that, but of course I'm part of the breeding program, but what they told me is that I'm not really being bred with the grace because I have this, I'm of the bloodline, so to speak. I have Masons on both sides of my family. It appears that my grandparents were like an arranged marriage, and so were my parents. And so I'm like the bastard line of the royals or the Annunaki, and so that's, why I'm very psychic and intuitive, and that's why I'm a contactee experiencer rather than an abductee. I've had some experiences where they've taken me, and because I'm in this 3D reality, I've agreed to go through the veil of unconsciousness. The first reaction was being startled and perhaps screaming and not realizing what was going on. And then, of course, the more it would happen, the more rapidly the memories would come back, and I would just relax into the experience, and I'd go, oh, okay, this is this again. And I knew they didn't hurt me. They actually held me in high regard. At one point, they had me go on the ship. When I was 4 years old, I went on the mothership, and as soon as I was on the mothership, I was my eternal self. I was no longer, a 4-year-old human. I had full memory of who I was as an eternal being, and really, human beings are multidimensional beings. We simultaneously have incarnations in many levels and many planets and many forms, but we tend to focus on where we are in the here and now because that's what's required being in this, 3D reality. So for the experience when I was on board the ship, they showed me 24 different multiverses and the potentials of where humanity could go. And there were 12 good paradigms and 12 bad paradigms, timelines, multiverses. And the very first one they showed me was the whole planet blew up. And then the next one they showed me was, well, the planet's whole, but there's a lot of destruction. And they showed me 12 of them, from the worst being the blow up to, not a really good outcome that I'd want to experience. And then they started showing more and more positive timelines until they became rather utopian. And then they asked me, which reality do I want to, spend my time in my existence? And I chose one of them. And that was in 1958, in the summer of 58, around, I'd say it was like early June, around this time, early to mid-June 1958. And so then I came back down. I was kind of like teleported or beamed or something. I'm not sure of the technology. But when I returned to Earth, the sun was setting. And when I was taken, although I wasn't taken, it was just part of what I agreed to do, is be part of this grand experiment in consciousness. It was high noon. So I was given a message that I'm coming here to do something which will benefit humanity. A lot of experiencers get that message that they are here on a mission, that they're here to help humanity. And then I had the awareness to not go in and tell my parents or anybody in my family because they wouldn't react well. But I never, ever, ever forgot that experience. And then finally, when I was in my 30s, I told my brother, and I should have told him earlier because he was just totally okay with it. But it's really hard when you're an experiencer to find people to talk to. And I'm so glad that this movement is starting to become, more popular and that we have more support systems for all of those who are having contact.
What's the difference between what you were going through by having a sexual relationship with these beings? And, I'm going to make fun of it for a little bit because my wife and I just had this conversation the other day where I said, what, if I have to go Captain Kirk to the female species, does that constitute cheating? And we had a good laugh over it. I didn't expect this conversation to go like this. But anyhow, what is the definition, though, between what was happening to you and what a lot of people, and especially women, are experiencing, which would pretty much on Earth constitute rape?
Well, apparently in the grand design of things, no one owns their DNA, so we're all kind of an ongoing biological experiment. It's been going on for millions of years. So they rape men too. They come and they can extract your semen, and they can take your semen and your eggs and combine them in various fashions and combine extra. They can put 3 or 4 different species of extraterrestrials into one being that they create. I have a friend, Cynthia Crawford, and her dad was in the military, and before he died, he said he gave her breakdown of what she was, and she was like 4 different extraterrestrials. She was part of a genetic experiment being done by human beings that was started back in the 1940s. She was born in 46 or 7. So anyway, so the difference is, and I don't think it was a common thing that they did with me, but it was one time it was a full total memory. I was on board ship and they brought this being over and, he penetrated me and I was freaked out. I said, no, I'd rather they just take my eggs. And I think that's what they did for the most part. But that one, I asked them to never do that again. And they did. They agreed and they never did it again. So they did, like I said, respect me. But apparently some people get into sexual relationships with them. I think if we, stop being bigoted and prejudiced and we get into our Star Trekian type existence, which is probably right around the bend, hopefully in our lifetimes. If you remember the series Star Trek, there were people that were mating with different extraterrestrials, and some of them, look like Ferengi, right? And some, which would probably be the equivalent of a little Grace. I think it's probably possible that someday humanity will have open sexual and loving relationships with extraterrestrials, so we better get over our prejudice and bigotry. But for your question of is it cheating, we are also, besides researchers on all this stuff, we are relationship counselors. Been doing that for 20 years. 19 years we've been together. That is a big question. When is it cheating? Is it cheating when you're looking at the girls on the internet? Is it cheating when you're kissing? Is it cheating when you're, having sex? Stan Romanek, remember Stan? He was seeing his children, and when they got down to it, they told him that he had produced children with like 3 of their friends, and then they had to deal with it. I guess we're polyamorous, because we all care about each other and love each other, and the children were starting to visit them, and so they had to let that go about whose DNA was within that child. That child is lovable. The mother who mothered or fathered it.
Sasha and Janet, I'm going to get you to hold on here for a moment. We are going to go to our break at the bottom of the hour. Dr. Sasha Lessin and Janet Lessin are our guests tonight. They are taking part in the Alien Cosmic Expo in Brantford, Ontario in just 2 weeks' time, June 24th to 26th. If you're on the East Coast or you got time to fly to the East, I highly suggest you go to this conference. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back after this break.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Hi there. This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick Webster Small, and I'm here to bring you the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night. Live at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. If you're looking for aliens and extraterrestrials, well, we've got them. Big and tall, short and small. You're bound to find what you're looking for. So join me on the Webster Phenomena right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit. And expect a miracle.
Have you ever wondered about those weird and strange creatures people have reported throughout history? Do you wonder if those stories are real? Me too, and that's why I started Cryptopia.us. Hey, this is Rob Morphy, crypto historian. Join me once a month on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott, where we will get into the odd and bizarre reports, from the Dover demon to hairy hominids and everything in between. I will break down what people like you and me are seeing at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost?
Look no further than Spaced Out Radio.
SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click on to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on radio
or our website, including social media.
From commercial spots to banners, we have it all.
Check out our competitive pricing today.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Want to connect with us online? Find us on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show, on Twitter, @Spaced Out Radio, on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, on YouTube, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. All right, space travelers, here comes the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio. And welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Appreciate you tuning in. If you're listening in on the SHR Media Network, if you're on Paranormal Forum, the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, or on Facebook at Forest Moon Paranormal, Euphoria Chronicles, or our flagship, SOR Space Travelers, good to have you with us tonight. Absolutely a pleasure. Remember, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel, where we store our archives, subscribe to that at Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website. It's going to have a brand new look coming up extremely soon, spacedoutradio.com. Tomorrow night on the show, Samantha Mowat will be with us. I know she's had sex with aliens. We're going to talk to her about that. She is my contactee friend, the Alien Experience, tomorrow night on SOR. Tonight, though, we are talking with Dr. Sasha Lessin and his wife, Janet. We are talking about extraterrestrials, the history, the current, the sexual, apparently. They are a part of the Alien Cosmic Expo taking part on June 24th through the 26th in Brantford, Ontario. We're glad to have a number of the guests from that conference coming on Spaced Out Radio this month. It will continue this week and next before the big conference. We welcome in Sasha and Janet now. Thank you so much for being with us.
We're grateful to be here. Thank you for having us.
Indeed.
I want to get into a couple of points that you made in the previous half hour about the extraterrestrials seeming to have a very, very strong intrigue in human reproduction. I never really knew this until I read Philip Kraft's first book, where he stated that one of the Verdants following him around, her job in her lifetime was to explore human sexuality, how it worked, why was it pleasurable. Have you noticed this as well, Janet?
Well, looking back at it, I think that has been one of their things. I mean, they're kind of scientific and they're looking at the species, and their sexuality apparently is much different. I have a friend that's been in the secret space program, and she was on board of a craft outside of Mars, was guarding a wormhole, and I interviewed her, and she said that, if they wanted to, if there were somebody wanting to have a child, they would be, matched with someone. It wasn't this whole involvement in relationship. It was like they produced children, and then somebody else would take care of them. So we're very emotional beings. The extraterrestrials are fascinated with our ability to love and how deep emotions, including hate and all the other ones, but the love connection, they don't. A lot of them apparently cannot experience that depth of connection with another being, so they're fascinated with that. Back in the 60s, when I was a teenager, like 12 or 13, walking to school one day, we had those little portable radios, and there was an announcement that Jean Dixon, who was, I guess, the astrologer for, the presidents back then, said that she had some information about aliens had been taking these teenagers and introducing them on ships to each other and having them have sex. And I was like taken aback, went, wow. And then, of course, since I was an experiencer contactee, I wondered about that. Years later, when I got involved with 2 different relationships, I was married for most of my early 20s, and then in the late 30s, early 40s, I was back dating again. So I had 2 different relationships where when I looked at their childhood pictures, when they were teenagers, like in their early teens, my mouth dropped and I went, oh my God, I think that I had sex with them on board ship. Or they were at least fostering some kind of love connection with them, because here we were, adults in our 30s and 40s by that time, and it's like we had that stranger in the night seeing each other across the room and immediate attraction. So maybe that's what's behind a lot of things. We get kind of paired up with different people when we're younger, as we're, contact these experiencers, part of this grand experiment, and then we're older and we end up kind of being directed to each other. We fall in love and we have this profound and deep, intimate connection. And that was explored in Whitley Strieber's Majestic. If you ever have a chance to read that, that's fascinating. It says how there was this couple and they were just, when they found each other, it was like they were in heat. They could not contain themselves. And the woman that was on board the ship, in the secret space program in the military, she and her husband were introduced to each other, and the same thing. They were like in heat. They the first night they were together, they made this deep, intense tantric lovemaking, and they were out of their bodies and traveling through the cosmos. And once you have that kind of connection, they ended up, never leaving each other and getting married, and they were together until he died just recently.
Going back to the Philip Kraft book for a moment. The Verdant that he was chatting with in regards to human sexuality, who said it was her job to figure it out, one of the things that she did explain in the book, according to Philip, was the fact that their species did not understand the fun, the sensitivity, the feeling, the emotion of sexual contact. Do you think that's probably a reason why so many different species are interested in this?
I think so, and in fact, this gets kind of into some dark things, but Sasha's kind of the expert on Dulce. Apparently, Dulce was a brothel, and a lot of different species from around the galaxy or whatever would come to Earth to experience intercourse with human females. So that's kind of the dark side, but that's definitely, I think Phil was right. I know he's no longer with us, and I did read that book years ago. And in fact, if you go back to the 50s or 60s, there was that man from South America, I forget his name, I should be better on the details, but he was a Spanish man, and he said that the woman, when she came in the room, she couldn't resist him. He copulated with her, and when she left, she said she pointed to her belly like she had just gotten pregnant, and she said she was, pointing to the sky. And he wrote this up, or it got written up by one of the early researchers, and that was like, yeah, this is a baby going to result from this. So I think that's accurate.
Well, there's also a lot of reports too that when extraterrestrials would land at Area 51, they would actually go stay at the Sahara while it was still around and go hang out with humans there and see what kind of trouble human-wise they could get in. I have heard stories about that as well. So it's absolutely everywhere. I do want to continue on, though, because also in the first half hour, you mentioned a name that I find extremely intriguing to the entire disclosure process, and that is Stan Romanek. Now, we all know that Stan right now is up on child pornography charges. And there is a lot of controversy around his name, whether he did it, whether he did not. That's not for us to decide. That is for a court to decide. But I will ask you this. I mean, this is a gentleman who was stated to be very computer illiterate, someone who was challenging the government on a daily basis. Do either of you think that he was set up?
Well, frequently they set people up, so that's a possibility. There was someone else, do you remember who else was set up? I think it might have, someone that's deceased. Apparently he's not the first person that got set up with this, so, and also it's possible that he did do some child pornography. I don't know Stan well enough, but it just seems too convenient, like it's a setup, you know.
It's just a distraction, just like Bill Clinton's didn't inhale on Monica's dress. Forget it. Who cares? What did the guy contribute?
Right. So I like Stan. I've seen him at many conferences. His information was profound. He was definitely onto something. They were visiting him. He had photos. And it's a shame, and I hope he, manages to get past all this and get back to his life, but definitely has, stopped his forward momentum, and as he was making a major contribution to the experiencer disclosure movement, and I feel very sad that it happened to him.
I talked to Lorian Fenton about this when I was interviewed on her show, and I've never met Stan. I've watched a number of his videos and his story. I believe he was onto something. In my opinion, though, and I'll point this at you, Dr. Sasha, do you think maybe he got cocky in challenging the government, and that's why they shut him up?
I really don't know. All I know is that I speak my truth. I reach millions of people. I'm having fun. Nobody's shut me down. I get to talk to all kinds of interesting people and put them on my show. And I've said, out loud to the world that the Twin Towers was a stand down, that Cheney, Bush, and Rumsfeld are mass murderers. I just speak my truth, and nobody's harmed me at all. At least I can sound off here, and nothing at all bad has happened.
Well, we do get some legal things, so maybe that's our distraction. maybe they send things at you different ways, or maybe it's just what happens in life. So I can't really distinguish that. I just whatever challenges come my way, I ask for guidance and help from my higher beings or angels or guides or extraterrestrials, and I seem to get help. No matter what happens, how horrendous it is, I seem to get these magical, miracle things that happen that just turn it all around.
But is there intimidation? Yes, like one of my friends had this whole thing with, get a telescope, get some welder's glass, so you filter out the infrared, show it on the at sunset or sundown from all over the world, send it into this site, and we'll show you that where Nibiru is and how its progress is through the heavens and the stuff that NASA shuts down. And every one of these sites shut down. And one of them, I told my friend, someone called and said, "You got a nice family. I know you'd like to keep that family," and he shut down. So I do believe that some people are intimidated, that there is some kind of intimidation going on, but it's never affected me, I guess, because I don't know very much.
Well, you've been in Facebook hell, honey, so you've been Facebook hell. They put you in jail, Facebook jail.
Oh, yeah, Lord
I've been there.
Yes.
I have been there. Apparently, at one point, I was sharing too much into my own Spaced Out Radio groups, and I got shut down.
Right, yeah.
As ridiculous as ridiculous as that is. No, the reason why when you brought up Stan, it triggered a memory for me, because during this show, we sometimes get some weird things that happen. And on April 15th of last year, while I was broadcasting this show, I had an extraterrestrial appear at my window and watch what I was doing. And I made eye contact with it, and it was very, very similar looking to the one that was in Stan's window. So when you brought up that name, it really resonated with me, because this guy had the big black eyes, the extremely bulbous gray head, but it was chiseled, if you know what I'm saying. It actually showed the cheekbones before the tightness down to the pointy chin and the slit of a mouth. And I stared at him for about, I don't know, it seemed like an eternity, but I'm sure it was only about a second and a half before I jumped back and almost fell off my chair. And then when I looked, he was gone. And there is tape of that out there. I do know that.
Oh,
but
I'd love to see that.
I wish it was on video, but I know there's audio tape of it. But the whole point is, there's experiences that are happening. They are making themselves known to us on a, what I like to call an awakened level, when we are awake. Not mentally awake, not spiritually awake, but physically awake. Do you see, Sasha, that happening a lot more these days as we draw closer to disclosure?
Absolutely. What's happened? Well, we've lived in a state of what we call pluralistic ignorance, where millions and millions of people have these experiences, but they're inhibited from speaking of them because they're afraid of sanctions. But now that people are speaking out, you're getting much and much more acceptance. The fear factor goes down when people start talking. Like, the most interesting thing to me about what you just said, Dave, is what was the vibe like between you and this extraterrestrial? What was communicated? What was that like? What did it feel like? What did you think?
I do have to say this. In our SOR Space Travelers on Facebook, James Borg, one of our listeners, actually posted a photo, and yes, that is almost an exact twin to the one that was in my window one night. What I was thinking was, I actually thought, and my show, I broadcast out of my house, and what I was thinking was, there's somebody walking up to my door, because I saw something move out the window, out of the corner of my eye, and all I can think about is, I have a yappy little dog that if there's a crosswind, that's worth 30 minutes of barking. And I really don't need my dogs barking as I just kick off the show. So when my guest, Fylth, what was his name? Harvey Kraft, talking about Buddha of all things, started answering the first question, I put my microphone on mute, turned and looked outside the window to see if it was one of my friends outside, and there's the black eyes staring back at me. There's the big bulbous gray head. And, I mean, it startled me, but here's the interesting part from what you ask. I immediately texted my wife, Mrs. Spaced Out Radio, yes, that's her name, to come on in to the room. There was an alien at the window, and she is very empathic. She is my personal healer when it comes to Reiki and everything. And the minute she walked in my studio, her hands were burning like fire. And
wow.
She picked up on that energy. She all of a sudden lights the sage, lights the Palo Santo wood, and she is going all over the house to try and get this out of there. This feeling out of there. And it took at least half an hour, 45 minutes for the energy to calm down from it.
Let me just go back a step. She evidently wanted it gone. But what about you? Did you feel like you wanted it gone, or what was your reaction, not hers?
You know what? I was happy because 3 days previous to this, I had actually, as someone who has had alien contact, I actually I was standing outside after one of my shows, and I was kind of looking up at the stars, and I said, "Where have you guys been? Haven't seen you in a while, haven't had any interaction in a while. I'm kind of curious why you haven't come around." And of course, nothing happened until 3 days later when old Mike the extraterrestrial decides to show up. I don't know his name, but we'll call him Mike. And scare the living daylights out of me during the show. Right. The funny part about it is, on April 15th of this year, the 1 year anniversary of it, I put the energy out there to try and bring him back. I wanted to interview him. I was prepared. I had the blinds up on my new office here in our new home. I have 2 sets of windows. I had the blinds up in both windows saying, okay, windows are open. You're invited to come on in. And he no-showed on me. He no-showed.
Didn't show.
No, I thought it was quite rude.
Tell me his name again.
I don't know.
Mike,
What would be really useful if you let yourself, imagine that you could walk behind Mike's eyes, that you could see the world from his perspective, that you could look through the window and see Dave from his perspective, and could you, using Dave's vocal apparatus, speak as Mike and say what your existence is and what your interest in Dave is. Be Mike. What do you like, Mike? What do you want?
Oh, goodness. This is putting me on the spot here. I would want to know what his interest is in me, because here he is talking about us on a daily basis.
Yes. So he's he seems curious about what makes you talk about them.
Yeah, I think it goes a little deeper than that, though. I really do believe that. Do you know Susan Collins, the dowser?
Yes. We talked to her a week ago.
Okay, I had Susan on last Thursday. And we were actually, in the last 40 minutes of the show, I wish we would have done it earlier, we were actually dowsing together. I had my pendulum out, and I was swinging my pendulum, and she says usually there's other spirits attached to it. And the spirit that we called number 2 happened to be this guy.
Oh,
number 2.
There you go.
Yes. So I tried it just last night and said, hey, number 2, are you here? But I did it in the Austin Powers or the Dr. Evil voice, number 2, right? and yeah, he popped up right away. Absolutely right away. So I'm sure there's something more deeper and something that I need to explore a little bit more in depth when I am ready. And I'm assuming there's a lot of people like that.
You have a relationship with him.
Obviously, they want you to be some kind of spokesperson or ambassador or go-between.
Well, let me shed some light on this. Okay, when I was taken in 1995 on Johnston Atoll to an underground installation, there was the one that carried my right foot. There were like 6 of them. They were carrying me like a surfboard. And when I started screaming, he said, go ahead and scream all you want. Nobody can hear you because you're in an energy field. And I relaxed. And he was communicating with me telepathically. And so in 2013 at the International UFO Congress, he came into my bedroom at the Congress, and he was kind of up in the corner in a little energy field, and he was communicating with me full-on telepathically. So it's like you get a guide that's an extraterrestrial guide, and he's your guide. He's got a relationship with you. When he looked at you, you were in telepathic communication. Have you gone back to listen to that? You might have, said something or kind of.
Well, he's asked the very very important question that you probably want to know too. What has made you, Dave, fascinated by this subject so much that it's become the central focus of your life? I think it's a really good question.
So what happened to you at an early age? When did you start having contact?
My first contact experience that I know about happened in April of 2014 when I had a landing experience when I was called outside at a friend's farm. I had a landing experience about 150 yards away where I communicated with that craft. And then 5 days later, I went back to the place where it happened with Samantha Mowat, who is my guest tomorrow night. And she convinced me in behind the property to walk into the forest. And this is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we walked into the forest about 80 to 100 yards. And she stopped me and she said, Dave, I don't want you to panic. I want you to look straight ahead and tell me what you see. and I looked straight ahead, and there was a 10 to 12 foot being standing there, about 200 feet away.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Wow,
And,
describe the being.
Well, my initial words, I think my first 5 minutes of speaking are, "What the F is that?" And I kept reporting that to her and repeating it, and that was very, very intense. It was very thin. To be honest with you, it looked like about as thin as a street lamp, and it had a bulbous head on the end of it. I did not see any arms or legs. I was too concentrated on trying to, make 2 + 2 = 4, because when this happened, I was 40 years old. I'm 43 now. And and I've said this on this show many a times, when you're brought up in a household where God is good, the devil is bad, if you do good things, you go up, if you do bad things, you go down. Nobody ever told me in my 40 years, what am I supposed to do when E.T. is standing 200 feet in front of me saying, "Hey, we're not taking you today. Would you like to come over and say hello?"
Wow.
Yeah.
So how close did you get to him? Or it? How close did you get?
My butt was so puckered, I was not moving an inch. And you know what, to be honest, I will finish this story with you guys right after the break, because I know our audience is right intense here. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. Dr. Sasha Lessin and Janet Lessin are our guests tonight. They are taking part in the Alien Cosmic Expo, flying from Hawaii over to Brantford, Ontario. So if you're in the area on the East Coast, get your butts north to Brantford. Check out this conference June 24th through 26th. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back after this break.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where 2 members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio on the Spreaker.com network.
Do you believe you've been in contact with extraterrestrials? Have you seen the Greys, the Mantis, or the Reptilians? I am Samantha Mullet, and on the second Tuesday of each month, you can listen and learn from my experiences with off-worlders on Spaced Out Radio's The ET Experience. With host Dave Scott, we'll sit down and chat about what's going on with our friends from other worlds. We'll also try to answer your questions, so please tune in on the second Tuesday of the month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories Are you listening?
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
Right here, this is where we divulge the fruit of our research. Here on the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on Spaced Out Radio. And we give it up to you guys, all the listeners, and the live listeners usually get something special and hang out in the chat room. And we love to have you. So we'll see you every Saturday night at 8 p.m. You know where.
If you're a fan of social media, you can follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel, where our archives are stored, is Spaced Out Radio Show. And of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. If you're listening in on the SHR Media Network, over on Paranormal Forum, on the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, and on Facebook at Euphoria Chronicles, Forest Moon Paranormal, and our flagship, SOR Space Travelers. Good to have you all with us tonight. Tomorrow night on the show, Samantha Mowat will join us, the ET Experience. We go 3 hours worth of ET contact tomorrow night with Samantha. I want to remind you, you can follow us on social media at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show. You can subscribe to that to hear our archives. And our new look website is spacedoutradio.com. That'll be launching in just a few days. Before we bring our guests back on, I do want to remind you, SOR Space Travelers, Bill Cardwell has set tonight's password. Extraterrestriophiliac is the password. Extraterrestriophiliac. I don't know what that means. Bill has a wild imagination, but we'll keep that at that. Tonight our guests are Dr. Sasha and Janet Lessin. They are taking part in the Alien Cosmic Expo, June 24th to 26th, right around the corner in Brantford, Ontario. Dr. Lessin and Janet, welcome back to the show.
Oh, we're glad to be here.
Welcome. Yeah, well, we were left when we terminated with the basic question that you're getting is why are you interested in, and basically what is that? Just like the Verdants wanted something of the author, what do all your contacts add up to? What do they want of you, Dave?
I have no idea, and you know what? I see what you're doing here. You're turning me from host to guest. You're flipping the roles on me here. But
flipping it.
but that's okay. That's okay. But you know what, Dr. Sasha? It goes like this. I think I'm doing what they want me to do because since April 15th, I have not had any contact. I have maybe seen one UFO, and that was the day I moved, or the evening after I moved into my brand new house up north. And since then, it has been pretty much silent. Now, I have felt their energy. The other night, I was outside, and you get that buzzing feeling like you're not alone. And so I went inside, and I started with my little pendulum with my friend Eric, and he was working his pendulum at the same time, and it just seemed to work. And yes, there was the energy there. No, they weren't taking me. No, they weren't going to make themselves visible. But we were able to confirm that they were there. So I'm not too sure what the direction is besides Spaced Out Radio. And that's where I'm confused. It's my own confusion.
Work.
Exactly.
Well, we find that most of the investigators and researchers, when they finally get to it, that's like, I'm an experiencer too. So it's a catalyst that gets you going into your direction. And yours is this radio show you're doing 7 days a week. I really admire you. I can only do it about 5 days a week, and then I get burned out. And it's like I got to do at least 1 or 2 days where I'm not doing radio. And I think you're about a major player in disclosure here. You're interviewing all these people. You're reaching I don't know what your audience is, but it sounds like you're doing a really bang-up job, and so congratulations.
Well,
I was curious about this angel of death you talked about during the break. I don't know if you want to go into everything's connected. The Annunnaki's connected to the Greys connected to the spiritual aspect. It's all connected. As a researcher, author, investigator, experiencer, contactee, it's an amazing correlation of all this information. People think either or, but it isn't. I had an experience with a fellow that came through a Stargate type portal, just like on the series Stargate, where kind of like the whole horizon becomes water-like, and then they come right through. And I had a fellow that I blocked his face for many, many years. I was about 5 when he started visiting me, and about 12 when I stopped it. I think sometimes we say enough contact and we need a break. So I finally stopped that when it was very tense. It felt like he was trying to suck my brain or my soul out through my third eye chakra and my crown chakra. And then years later, I reflected upon it, and I did some therapy on it with my husband, Dr. Lessin, who's a hypnotherapist and a wonderful therapist, and then further reflection. And I finally realized I was writing up my story, and I think I got the final piece of the puzzle. And it's not that he was trying to, kill me. His type of communication is his ability to do telepathic communication has a different vibratory frequency than the Greys, and I was used to the Greys communicating with me, and so it felt I was the one that was afraid of it, and I was the one that caused all the fear. And when I got that revelation, it was like and then I saw him from a different perspective, and he's actually very kind and loving, and part of like the extended extraterrestrial spiritual family that most of us have out there, but we're just so into our human experience and being part of this grand experiment that we can't see it until we open our minds and hearts and souls to it. So anyway, what did you want to talk about? It's the second hour.
Oh, I don't know now. To be honest, I'm just thoroughly enjoying your explanations to everything, but on a serious note, let's talk about abductions for right now, and I do want to get into the Anunnaki and ancient aliens theories as well. So we do have a lot to talk about when it comes to the abductions and or contact. Janet, there is a lot of controversy regarding this process because they are taking us, for most people who believe, it's against our will. They're performing tests on us. They're using us as human guinea pigs. And for a lot of people, it angers them. It makes people scared because here are these beings taking us without our consent or our physical consent. It may have been spiritual before we were born. Yes, I understand that. But there's a lot of controversy around abduction and or contact. How do you view that point?
Well, I have worked with, hundreds of contactees, experiencer, and I got all these experiencer groups when I go to conferences because that's, my interest. And I've seen it more from years ago where it was like, oh, it's so horrible. And now you go to these groups and they're all like glowing and smiling and saying that, they realize that they're blessed to have this contact. So I guess it depends where you are. What we noticed, like with David M. Jacobs, and he's a very sweet person personally, but he tends to have, a hard line, kind of like almost like a religious fanatic. He has his theory, and he's really invested in his theory, and he's famous because of it. And he has all these books, and he makes his money from it. That the Greys are here to take over humanity, and they're a bad thing. But what I personally had was one time, I do like you. It's like, okay, show me. These things are mysterious. I would wake up with scratch marks on me, punctures. A lot of times it was in my back, so I couldn't really see it. My husband, who was just very conservative and Republican back in the 90s. This is the furthest thing from, his mind is that his wife is having abductions, and he would often see these things and point them out to me, and then I'd get a mirror and I go, what in the world are they doing? But I said, okay, show me what's going on, because I started to go, when I had to go to the bathroom at night, I started running and leaping from the into the bed, because they were, grabbing my feet. I've been carried many, 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 many times, okay? And no matter how often you have it, it's still kind of freaky, because it's just, it's not a human thing. It's kind of like that response to a spider landing on you. It's like, ah! So I started jumping, and I went, oh my goodness, my contact must be back. Because I was, for a long time there, I was trying to get pregnant with my second husband, and I was doing my chart with the thermometer as to when I was ovulating, and then I was going through the infertility stuff. So I noticed they were coming all during that period, right when I was fertile, and they were harvesting my eggs, and I would be having fights with them, and they'd say, don't do that, and, having this, it was like a pure abduction experience. But in 1993, August 31st, you tend to remember those ones really, that are really, really, really important. August 31st, 1993, they took me to a field. I was in a ski chalet overlooking down into a valley, and they gave me the grand finale of the Close Encounters of the Third Kind. They showed me every ship they had, and they were zooming past me like a major sky show, and I was just like, my mouth was open. I was so excited. I was so happy. I was so thrilled. Yes, they're showing me everything. And then at one point, the ships stopped coming, and they took the sky. They made it like a giant scroll, and it was just like, it was kind of like Star Wars, right? How it scrolls, but it went over my head. It went from in front of me to over my head, and it was all these hieroglyphs. And I was saying, "What is it? What's it saying? What's it saying?" And I was still ecstatic. And they said, "It'll make sense later. We're just you're getting it. You're getting the information. It's going, and it'll make sense later." And then that stopped, and then I saw down the hill. It looked like owls in a tree, and I was so excited. And I just found the way off of the ski chalet, and I was running down as fast as I could down this. And I know I was there because I could feel the breeze on my face. It was like a warm summer day. It was perfect weather. It was beautiful. And as soon as I got down to the end, I went around. They kind of were teasing me. They were like flying, and then I saw, these are grays, and they're hovering now. They're not walking. They're actually kind of flying. But these are gray ETs. And they went around the corner. As soon as I went around the corner, a blue beam. This is just like Travis Walton. I didn't realize until I pieced that together. A blue beam came and got me right in the solar plexus and was lifting me up, and then my arms were dangling back, and I was just going up. And I said, "Wait!" I started to go unconscious. I said, "Wait! Don't you dare make me go unconscious! I want the whole thing. I want you to take me up without doing that." And then they so gently set me back down, and they said, "We've never done anything against your will. It's always been your choice." And when that was said to me, my whole life flashed before me, and I realized that was truth, and that's exactly what's been going on. And I suspect that most people that are having the level of contact like you, Dave, you've been having it all of your life, in fact, into previous lifetimes. And don't be surprised now that it will, it might come flooding back. And what I would do if I were you is I would put a notebook on my bed table, and before I get up out of bed in the morning, because you're more receptive when you're sleeping, so every morning write down your impressions, write down anything you remember, and the more you start inviting that kind of information coming in from your subconscious to your conscious mind, the more you're going to remember. So I have contact almost every single night. And now I'm going on ship, and I'm going to the planets, and Sasha wants to say something.
Which is when you understand intentionality. What you get is what you intended, whether it was conscious or unconscious. And what is this unconscious? Basically, it's a holographic universe, and everything that is within each of us, and we're within everything else. And so you intend understand everything, even if it seems junk now. It's part of your evolutionary path to embrace those apparent opposites. That is what gives you motion in your ascendance through the hierarchy of consciousness, in my opinion.
And that's disclosure. If you can move from fear, from victim, from abductee to experiencer, you'll clear the energy within yourself. You'll be able to speak more clearly about it on the radio to other people. They'll start clearing their energy, and we're going to reach critical mass, the 100th monkey, and then some. And that's where disclosure is going to come from, the people.
Yeah, and lots of times, even if it isn't, you don't remember, you say, gee, I agreed to be taken in this lifetime. If I were to regress you into from one of your subselves or a past life, you would see at some place that you said, I do consent to that. And we don't know, of course, if you're not retroactively placing that sanskara or script out for yourself, but it's the balancing of the karma to say that everything that is your intention and it's for your growth. And if that isn't true, it's still a good attitude because it gives you a positive outlook.
I have a couple questions coming in from our audience. We'll start off with a pair of them from Lynn in Paranormal Forum. With the abductions that are happening and the fear that goes in a lot of people's minds in regards to extraterrestrials, contact, and everything that goes along with it, have you ever been able to decide, either one of you, or come to a theory of what the extraterrestrial agenda truly is with Earth and mankind?
Well, we go back to the Annunaki for a lot of that information because this major contact began with the Annunaki. And so their agenda, well, a lot of the Annunaki are selfish, and then some of them are here to help humanity ascend to become conscious and become enlightened. And that's the Enki faction. And Enki's son, Nigashita, also known as Thoth or Thoth, went into the underground facility, which was called the Halls of Amenti, and encountered the Watchers, the more ancient race than the Anunnaki, the race that's connected to Source at the highest level. And they apparently have facilities within every sphere or any place that has the potentiality for sentient life to evolve, and they've been watching us since this planet was designed. And so they mentored Nigashita, though, until he became an adept. He was an acolyte, and eventually he became adept at how to take himself into his molecular structure. What's holding our form together is our mind, is our souls. And so he was able to take himself down to his basic molecular structure and travel the universe. And then he came back to his mentors, and they asked him, well, now that you're one of us, now that you can do it all, what is your work in this world? And he said, I am here to help humanity become enlightened and conscious, just like I have, because he was unconscious before. Even the Anunnaki are in the third level of consciousness, and they are human in a humanoid experience. So I believe that a lot of the extraterrestrials are here to support us, that love us, that we're the end of a grand experiment in creating a species that can hold consciousness and connect with Source while not having to die. So we are a very magical species that is very spiritual. See, we can experience all those emotions. Most creatures can't. Once you're outside of this 3D form and you're a fourth dimensional higher, you don't have this skin-encapsulated self-sense, which is, the skin is dense. The skin is what keeps us separate from the apparent other. So when we're dead, one of the stories we get from Michael Newton Institute, and they've regressed into the life between lives. And when you're dead, you feel each other. It's like the Vulcan mind meld, but you can meld your energy fields together, and you feel each other, and so you can't possibly hurt each other when you feel each other to that level. The skin encapsulated self-sense that we're in creates self, and apparent other creates this is me and this is not me. And we can, one of the things, one of my friends that was in the super soldier program, he was asked by the extraterrestrials up on the ship, and they said, well, we can't hurt another anything. We can't hurt anything. How do you hit? And so his name was Tom. Tom demonstrated punching. They had one of their extraterrestrials volunteered to step up, and Tom punched him. And then they said, well, how do you kill? So he actually killed one of them. And so apparently we are designed also, because we do have part reptilian DNA, to be the soldiers, to protect the universe, or this part of the universe, because there are beings out there that are just so dark that all they do is come and rape a planet, all of its resources, all of its minerals, and destroy every living thing. And so that's what I've learned from this program, the Super Soldier Secret Space program, is that they're guarding a portal outside of Mars, one of the facilities, and there's a big, like a Battlestar Galactica type ship there, because it's not if, it's just when these beings will get through or attempt to come through, and they have a lot of human beings trained, because we are able to defend and kill, and they're not. So we can feel, we can love, we can hate, we can kill. So that's part of it. It's not 100% the answer what might be going on, but I'm getting the little bits and pieces the more I connect with other experiencers and whistleblowers. What do you want to say, Sasha, about that?
My take is that there were different factions among the Anunnaki. They came for gold. They created a slave race. But our makers, the genetics team, wanted to do better than they had done on Nibiru. On Nibiru, they had a thermonuclear war that sterilized most of the men, killed most of them. It was terrible. They almost totally wiped themselves out. And in putting Homo erectus, or Bigfoot genes, into our genome, the idea of Enki, who in the Bible is Adonai, and his team was to make a being that was compassionate, was not totally obsessed with hierarchy and greed and status. You think of the War of the Roses, where all these people are going to kill all their relatives just so they can be king. Well, that's the Anunnaki were just like that. They're a murderous bunch, and Enki hoped that he could create. The Homo erectus was going around, that's how Enki noticed him, letting other animals out of traps. Well, of course, Homo erectus was not an animal. Homo erectus is Bigfoot, and Homo erectus is very tuned into the earth, so that the connection with Gaia that we have, with this earth, with the spirit of this planet, and the feeling that we have of empathy for other animals that a lot of us have, is what makes us so unique. That's what we have to contribute. And when the second adaptation of humans was made 200,000 years ago, the Anunnaki were scared. They said, my gosh, these people are just as smart as us. Little Tiamat, the first woman, went right up to the boss and said, hi, I'm Tiamat, look what I just made. And just like their own little kids. And so they were scared. There was only about 1,000 of them. There got to be millions of us. And Prince Marduk, who felt he had been cheated out of the rule of Nibiru, made an alliance with the humans, and the nuking of Sodom and Gomorrah, and the upheaval of all of Sumer in 2025 BCE. This was just this repeat of Marduk trying to win over Earth and then Nibiru. And so the Anunnaki kept sending emissaries like Nanar, who became Allah, and his agents infiltrated the rulers of the earth, just as Marduk, who is imposing by now as Yahweh and pretending to be everybody else too. These guys all pretend to be all the gods. We're assassinating each other and keeping us fighting against each other, so we never realize there's just a few people on top ruling everything. Well, recently the Galzu, who have intervened from the Federation several times on our behalf, said, knock it off. Anu, the king of Nibiru, abdicated, and they're sending Enki down. That's Aquarius. It's time for the Satya Yuga to begin. The Kali Yuga, the time of travail, is over. Marduk said he's contrite and wants to make amends, and he's sorry that, but we needed the conditioning that we got, killing other people and being killed and all that stuff. We've all done it all, and it's time to move to a higher level and realize that we are all one. We need to have a planet of peace. We need to stop polluting this planet, and we need to stop testing nukes and making nuclear disruptions in space.
Sasha, I have one quick question for you, and we only have about a minute and a half before we have to go to break here. Your theories and everything are absolutely incredible, and I think they are bang on. But how were you able to find out this information? Because as far as I know, there isn't really any sources as a journalist that you could go to find out what you have learned.
There's all these things that Zecharia Sitchin, our great teacher, wrote. He translated all these writings in clay from ancient Sumer, and on the basis of statues. But there's even more than that. If you go to an Annunaki temple, they are designed to magnify the telluric energy through the ley lines of Earth, and you meditate in a spiritual place like that, you can directly access whatever spiritual energies you need to. My Indian friends go out as part of their alone on top of a mountain, and they talk to the spirit people. It's there. I worked for a long time facilitating journey work, and journey work with entheogens takes people there too. If you ask for contact, you say, you can take over my vocal apparatus but not my consciousness. Please speak to me. I wish for contact. I wish for wisdom. Let me learn from you. You'll get some. It'll come to you.
We are talking with Dr. Sasha Lessin and his wife Janet Lessin tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Anunnaki, aliens, the connection to Earth, and a lot more coming up in the next 90 minutes of this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Have you ever had an extraterrestrial experience? One you just couldn't explain? Well, maybe I can help. Hello, I am Samantha Mullet. On the second Tuesday of each month, I will join Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio to bring a human aspect to ET contact. It's something I've lived with my entire life, and I'd love to help you understand. Let's share our experiences. The ET Experience, the second Tuesday of each month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Fairies? Bigfoot? Dogmen? Trolls? Goblins? Hey, if it's cryptid in any way, I'm looking into it. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, also known as Spaced Out Radio's Crypto Guru. Join me every second Wednesday of the month on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott, where we will talk about the stories people call tall tales. I will fill you in on the latest sightings and the hidden histories that are causing quite a stir. You can find everything at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Rivulet Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrndr.wix.com/rivuletrndr, or my Facebook page, Rivulet R&R, to set up an appointment for relaxation, Reiki, or readings, no matter where you are. It's time for you to make time for you.
Would you like to expand your clientele? Have you ever thought of online radio advertising? Check out spacedoutradio.com to get your name out there. Our listeners support those who advertise with us, so why not give it a try? We have the most competitive advertising prices out there. Just click on the advertising tab on spacedoutradio.com and contact us today.
Are you an ET experiencer, but you just don't know what's going on? Are you too timid or shy to discuss it with anyone? Maybe I can help. Join me, R. Keith Andrews, the first Friday of every month on Spaced Out Radio, and I will help you to find the answers you're looking for. Together, I will help you understand the off-worlders and the true meanings behind your experiences. All you have to do is join us in the Spaced Out Radio chat room. See you there.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Do you have a topic or a guest that you'd like to hear on Spaced Out Radio? Let us know at spacedoutradio.com, where you can sign up to become a Space Traveler member today. Or you can find us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning in at the SHR Media Network. If you were listening in on the Spaced Out Radio chat room, on Spreaker, on Paranormal Forum, as well as on Facebook at Euphoria Chronicles, Forest Moon Paranormal, and our flagship, SOR Space Travelers. Good to have you with us. Absolutely appreciate you taking the time out to be with us tonight. Always a pleasure. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Spaced Out, make that, what are we trying to say here? Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show, on Instagram. I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show. That's where we store our archives. And, of course, our website, which will have a brand new look very soon, spacedoutradio.com. Tomorrow night on the show, we stick with the extraterrestrial theme, the alien contact with Samantha Mowat. That is tomorrow night on Space Out Radio, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. We get going. Tonight we are talking with Sasha Lessin and Janet Lessin. We are talking ancient aliens, extraterrestrials, abduction, contact, disclosure. So many different topics on this. We could go absolutely everywhere. Very interesting indeed on where we can take this. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Well, we're glad to be back.
I want to get to a few more questions from our audience here. Galen is asking in the Space Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, American Indian star people who supposedly had intercourse with females, and when the children were a certain age, the star people would come and get them. Who were those star people, and why did they take the children?
We know that almost all the space-faring races have been interested in hybrid programs. And if you have a positive outlook, they're creating new humans able to adapt to the challenges of Earth. Or if you're paranoid, they're creating a race to take over. But what we also have to realize that the Bureau of Indian Affairs also took children all the time, brought them to mission schools, tried to stamp the Indian out of them, murdered many, and did terrible things. So that those are happening too. Most of the contacts we find more and more and more from the actual statistics that Hernandez has been getting is that are positive. People feel like they've been tuned up, that their children are going to be of a great assistance to the planet, and that there's real love. And so it's very interesting. The people that are afraid go to therapists who have a program of saying these are fearful, terrible things. And, so just, if you're getting anal probes, relax and enjoy it. So,
I lot of these people, I don't know if these native. I'm just kind of. Maybe they were shown. I was shown my children at some point, and I was also made aware by some other people that had experiences that probably they were taking my DNA, and they told me one time that they were taking sperm out of my, vagina, and using that sperm and my eggs and mixing it with the aliens to make these hybrids. I think this has been going on for a long time.
Yeah, when the people from Serpo that we had an exchange program with, one of and we sent 12 Americans to planet Serpo, and there's a reticular group as part of an exchange. They sent an ambassador here. But anyway, one of the guys died en route, and so the extraterrestrials, and this is back in the 50s, started taking his DNA and making all kinds of combinations, and the rest of the team was utterly horrified, and it was the first trouble they had. They demanded the body of the guy back, and it's too late. We've already done all this stuff with it, and it seems that all of the extraterrestrial races deliberately see what they can get. And one of the interests why Earth is of such interest to so many skyfaring races is that we breed. Since we are hybrids, we have so many aspects of us. We even have some reptilian as part of the deal for the Dracos to leave our this part of the system, is that we would have this fierce reptilian ability, mainly coded into our brainstem, that makes us cold, calculating, and obsessed with hierarchy. Fortunately, this is embedded in a limbic system, an emotional brain, which has a lot of feeling and a very powerful intellect and intuition and spiritual sense. But we breed with almost anything.
And then finally, Joanne Richards says that her husband, Mark Richards, who got framed, is in jail for life. Basically, when he was a child, he went to these meetings, and he said that there were human women that were being taken as wives for these raptors, or they married them, and they had they bore children, and even though they were half human and they were inside a human womb, when they came out, they all looked like these raptors, the velociraptors.
That is grotesque. Just grotesque.
They loved them. They loved them. They loved their children. They had relationships. I think we really got to get in behind the Star Trek and Star Wars mentality that once we get out there, we're going to see things that are going to blow our minds. And yet that's how life is in the universe. It's way different than this little box we live out our years. Way different. And I've been there. I have been to meetings of 100,000 distinct, unique species, right? And they showed me only the ones that were bipedal with like a face on and some kind of eyes, and they closely resembled us or animals, and they had hands of some kind. And they said, this is just but a sample of life in existence, and we're only showing you a short range that your little brain can handle. But once you get out there into the cosmos, you're going to see things that is sentient life, and it's not going to look anything like us. Although predominantly most of the species do look like us, or they look like reptilians, or they look like mantis, so they're insectoids. If you see a small species like an ant or a salamander, we have geckos here, it probably exists in the whole range, and there'll be a bipedal opposing thumb, some kind of hands variation of the theme, that if you are open to contact, you may find yourself at one or more of these meetings. And I am apparently at times an ambassador reporting to these huge gatherings about what it's like to be a human female in 21st century United States of America on the island of Maui. It's like a State of the Union report, and I just give it to them. I'm not sure how often I go, but I go periodically. And other people do. There's other people that are reporting it now.
I have a question from Eric in the SOR Space Travelers chat room on Facebook. And this is directed at you, Janet. What is the purpose, Janet, of the abductions if the intention is supposedly positive?
what is the purpose? Well, it's different for each individual. Sometimes they're meant to create hybrid children. Some people are, ambassadors. Some people have come here as part of their mission as a soul to help humanity evolve, become conscious. So each, you have to look at it individually. There's not an overall purpose. Each soul has their own reason for why they chose to come and incarnate in a human form. But let's see, his question was, what's the purpose? I think the overall purpose of all of this is diversification of creation as co-creators with God Source, universal consciousness. When we have these polarities of good and evil, light and dark, and we agree to go into these experiences which we judge as, good, bad, whatever, we actually are creating scenarios upon which we invent and create things. So we're co-creators with Source, and necessity is the mother of invention. So we're on a planet that's very warlike. And so just think of this society, although, it's got its bad side, we wouldn't have all these things like we have right now, like the internet, if it wasn't for everything having progressed just as it has. So we're actually kind of polarizing this dimension, this dichotomy, and we're reaching what is it called? The Kali Yuga, the procession of equinoxes. We're at the end of a cycle within a cycle within a cycle, and so we're about to ascend, whatever that means. But that means we're going to make choices about where we as individuals want to go in this co-creation and have our next 25,000 plus years of experiences. Do we want to reincarnate back? We are in this cycle. We keep reincarnating over and over and over. Every 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years, we go back into the other dimension. We rest for a while. We evaluate our lives. We make a decision where we're going to come back the next time. We go back in it again. So we can go back into that reality for the next yuga, or we can go into some other type of existence. I'm voting for the Star Trekian reality because I'm tired of this one, which is so unconscious, and I don't hate this life and this existence. I just hope to have a more conscious reality. I'd like to spend the 25,000 years in kind of a Star Trekian existence.
For me, the path is the goal. There's no place to get. It's how you tread the path. And when you do what's right, and you come from mostly love in your heart, and you extend that loving compassion to other creatures and other beings, there's no place to go to. It's all perfect. It's all part of the holographic universe. The creator of all is a thread that goes through each of us, and we can all realize that we are essentially one with one another. Recognize that whatever you think is other is really a part of you too. That's what I think.
Right, Om Namah Shivaya. Everything is God. Everything is each other.
Bonnie has a question for you in the SOR Space Travelers room. She is asking, do aliens who impregnate humans ever allow those children to be born on Earth?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's your turn. What would you like to say about that?
We've talked to lots of them. A lot of what you're calling aliens are people, they're from either inner Earth or from off the Earth, and they're human beings just like us. They have other properties and qualities, but they're people. They're walking among us. You can see Bigfoot on the line of USC.
Yeah, so we have several experiencers that have discovered that they have alien DNA and they are hybrids and they are born here and they have human lives and they went to kindergarten and high school just like the rest of us. And so that's happening more and more. So if you too out there, you may discover that you are a hybrid extraterrestrial, and so, you'll have to learn to deal with it. When I was on the ship, one of the lessons they taught me is that when you find yourself going down a negative timeline, it's like a super highway with many, many lanes, and you could just shift the lanes and go into a more positive direction. So that's kind of like the message for life. When you find yourself going into dark places and negative thoughts, just replace those thoughts with something positive, and then you'll start shifting your reality for yourself. There are many scientific evaluations of a big report from Russia that thoughts are deeds. It's not just a New Age saying. Thoughts are deeds. This is the law of attraction and action. So if you don't like it, change the channel. And if you are in a negative reality, it's like going to a Steven Spielberg movie or whatever, it's negative. Enjoy what you have attracted, because there's ultimately a message for you behind what your choices are to experience, and that you are always the driver, ultimately, even if what you do might put you into the dead zone, you're on the other side evaluating it that way. But I encourage you and I invite you in this life to, become lucid in your own life. Just like you could have lucid dreams, have a lucid life and realize that you're making decisions, and you can at any time and space, step outside of the box you're creating for yourself and look at it from a higher perspective and evaluate your own actions, be they conscious or subconscious, and make changes, make choices so you have a better experience with the short little dance you get to have on this planet in this form.
One of the best ways is to really emulate, to identify with archetypes or people from history that really motivate you, that you'd like to be like. And so you could, take a sage like Gandhi or Jesus and say, if there's a resonating part of me that's just like that, and I lived from the wisdom of that particular sage, what would I do in this situation, in that situation? And there are enlightened people, all around, the Dalai Lama, people that you can just do that with, or in history, or even in your imagination. When you imagine something, where does the image that you come? Where does your image come from? It comes from an experience. You know what the archetypes are, and you can ask yourself, what as you lived as each of these sages, what have you learned in this lifetime, and that you would like to share with humanity?
Eric has an interesting question in the Space Travelers, or make that the Space Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. He is asking, do you two subscribe to the theory that RH human blood factor is ET origin?
Go ahead.
It really depends on how you look at that. Yes, I do, but almost all the fauna on Earth is of extraterrestrial origin. This planet has been seeded. Evolution of the Darwinian slow sort, where you build on a one-celled cell until you get saber-toothed tigers and Donald Trump, is nonsense. There are no missing links. It's not true. There's microevolution, bigger animals or bigger horns and this or that, but the Earth was seeded periodically and reseeded after various kinds of surface catastrophes, and a lot of the Earth stock was saved by the people that went into inner Earth, where there's a large population of people that have survived, whereas remnants of many civilizations. And they have anti-grav craft, and they're space travelers too, and so that some of what people are calling extraterrestrials are really not extraterrestrials, all they're interterrestrials, and the interterrestrials go to our universities, and they're not our enemies, and they're peaceful people, and they're trying to get us to stop ruining this planet.
And the RH negative blood is the Annunaki strain, correct? Would you elaborate on that, dear?
The Annunaki are utterly concerned. They think they're better than everybody else because they've got this genetics. And I can tell you that this royalty or special heredity is nonsense. It's just a racism, and it's a way of excluding people who don't belong to that particular group. What I found is that every consciousness has a song to sing and something to contribute to the world, and it's nonsense that some people are better because they have genetics close to royalty. I think that's holding humanity back.
Joe has a question in the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook. If you're a hybrid, and are you more likely to be bred than someone who is not?
If one is a hybrid, probably, but they're not just taking hybrids for this breeding. Well, put it this way: we're all hybrids.
That's right.
Everybody that's alive on this planet today is part of an ongoing hybridization program that's been going on probably millions of years. The latest influx, or the most documented influx of the hybrid program, is the human Annunaki program, which, contact began 450,000 years ago. What's the timetable? When did they do?
They didn't make the atoms until 300,000 years ago. The miners that had come from Nibiru, they were digging in the mines in Southeast Africa, mutinied. Basically, they just had been underground for years, and they weren't being heroes, and there weren't any women. And Enki, the geneticist, actually got them to mutiny, and so he was allowed to go ahead with his genetic experiments. He'd already been doing them in Zimbabwe, and he made and they used not just things in the lab. They used their own women, their own doctors, so they would get mitochondrial DNA into these fertilized zygotes, and they finally came up with these. Thoth found out how to make them fertile. And Tiamat, the first female, who was actually blonde and blue-eyed, the first male, Adam, was brownish red-skinned, and they were just like the Anunnaki, except that our males have foreskins, and their males didn't. But Tiamat was a conscious being, and she blew their minds. And then when things really got rough 200,000 years ago, and most of the slaves in the gold mining area just went off into the African bush, and some of them migrated to Southeast Asia. The commander, Enlil, Yahweh, demanded smarter slaves who would work more. So Enki made it with two of the Adamite girls and made these two incredible children, Titi and Adapa. And Adapa was, like the smartest person ever. And he just totally blew everybody's mind, and he actually got to go back to Nibiru, but they would not give him eternal life. They let him live, 1,000 years or something, because they knew that Prince Marduk was going to organize the humans, the Earthlings, as they called us, and come back and try to take Nibiru, which he felt should be his, because they're dynastic agreements that they'd made.
And so we are able to copulate with Anunnaki and have live birth children, as well as Bigfoot. There are reports of that happening.
Yes.
Not sure if we can copulate with Greys and have children. I'm not sure what happened. We don't have all the information. It would be great if we could correlate all the information.
We know from Serpo that it's not just copulate and have. You can also have children.
Well, the point I'm making is that if you copulate and you produce children, that way you're the same species deep down, because a cat and dog can have intercourse and not produce children. So there's the cloning process, the lab process, but there are actual children out there from breeding and mating and having the children born that way. So we have all kinds of things going on here. We're still gathering information.
We have time for one question left before we got to go to break. We got about 4 minutes before we got to go to break. This one comes from Gloria in the SOR Space Travelers room on Facebook. Have there been any recorded cases of extraterrestrials bringing dead humans back to life?
Yes, many. Yes, definitely. In ancient times, we have several stories. Thoth putting a guy's head back on. We have stories of Inanna being killed by her younger sister, Erishkigal, and Enki with his android doctors able to put her back together. We have Randy Kramer and others who have told us how they've been killed and resuscitated as part of our clandestine military operations on Mars. It's recurrent. We get this all the time. And Marduk, Prince Marduk's body was actually seen floating in oils in Siwa by Alexander the Great, and later on he was revived. So they basically, it's not sure whether it's the same or not. It's not exactly like you're revived, because when you come through in another time, things have changed a little. But there's recurrent stories of people being revived, and Marduk actually talks about having the souls of many different people and gods in him, and he gets confused sometimes about who he is.
Right, and of course Jesus was an Annunaki. We have the story of Lazarus, and then in Majestic and other writings they talk about how this man was accidentally killed, and they actually had to put him in a different body because his body was destroyed, and so he was on board their craft, and he came back into consciousness, and he was in a female body, so he had to come back. They sent him back to Earth, and he lived the rest of his life as a female, and he was originally a male, and he didn't have to go through any kind of operation.
And you know, the reason why I like that question, because to put it on a more time-sensitive aspect, I believe Travis Walton has come out saying recently in the last couple of years that, unlike the movie Fire in the Sky, he believes that when he was hit by that beam, he was actually killed, and they brought him back onto the ship to bring him back alive. Have you heard that too?
We were actually there when he was starting to have that revelation. And I remember being in part of the conversation somewhere. Somebody said to him, "Well, Travis, don't you think maybe you were dead and they brought you back?" And then he just said Contact in the Desert was saying that on the panel. He says it took him a long time to integrate that piece of information, but he had reflected on it. He said, I know for a fact I was dead, and they brought me back.
They improved him. He was just a regular old lumberjack kind of guy, and now you rap with him, and there's a dude with wisdom.
Yeah, he's got... a lot of people get up-leveled and enhanced, and they get their intelligence and other things healed. So there's a lot of interference going on. If they think that you're vital to their program, they definitely come in and do some fixing and keeping you alive and making sure that you're changing things that you can. They want us to stay on our bodies and stay healthy, especially the people that are part of their contactee program.
I'm going to get you guys to hold on. We're going to go to our break at the top of the hour. Dr. Sasha Lessin and Janet Lessin are with us tonight. We're talking everything from alien interbreeding to the Annunaki. We're going to get heavy into that here in the final hour of the show, plus your questions. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back after this break.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy, from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Is the 24-hour world starting to wear you down? Let me from Rivulet Reiki and Ratings lend you a hand. Hi, this is Jolene, and if you're in need of Reiki or a realm reading, come to my website, rivuletrr.wix.com/rivuletrr&r, and let us help you out. At Rivulet, I specialize in healing your body, mind, and soul, no matter where you are. And be sure to check out the Rivulet R&R Facebook page for your best deals. Remember, it's time for you to make some time for you.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space Travelers Club. You'll find all you need at spacedoutradio.com. Final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Tomorrow night on the show, it's the Alien Connection with Samantha Mowat. She will be our guest tomorrow night. Thank you so much if you're listening in on the SHR Media Network, over in Paranormal Forum, online, in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker and on Facebook, Euphoria Chronicles, Forest Moon Paranormal, and our flagship SOR Space Travelers. Good to have you with us tonight. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show. That's where we store our archives. Subscribe to that. And our website, which will have a new look very, very soon, is spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we are talking with Dr. Sasha Lessin and his wife Janet in regards to everything from interbreeding with extraterrestrials, abductions, the Annunaki, and so many more topics indeed. We bring Dr. Sasha and Janet back in. Janet, I have a question from, or more so a comment from, one of our listeners, Joe, in the SOR Space Travelers.
Mm-hmm.
He sees a lot of owls around his property, which is right on the California-Nevada border. And we did this little test. I said to him, put a couple of chips or rocks or something on your nightstand and see if they move. He had them there for 3 weeks, and earlier last week, they moved. Ooh. And the theory behind that is, and I learned this from one of our previous guests about a year ago, the theory behind that is, if you've been taken, you can ask the ETs to move them so you know, or you can ask them to let you move them when they bring you back so that you know. Do you get a lot of theories, or have you looked into the theory of how owls seem to resemble the entire alien gray species?
Right. Owls are screen memory, and a lot of people, when they start doing the regression, they'll talk about an owl first. When I had the experience on August 31st, 1993, at first when I looked at the grays that were flying around, I said they're owls. The mind has a hard time wrapping around seeing something that's out of the ordinary confines of our defined realities. So also, you might notice if you're obsessed with something, like some people collect owls, and I know I went through a whole period in my 20s when I was setting up my house. I had owl pictures and owl salt and pepper shakers, and that was my fascination with owls. Now, when you were talking about them moving things, they like to give you, what do they call those things? Ooparts. They like to give you things out of the ordinary. Enki, when he was having contact with the Galzu, so the Galzu was a species that was way in advance of the Annunaki, so he was having his experiences that were, he was having contact. They left him something like a book or something, and he said, oh, that was a dream, and when he got out of bed, he fell over it, right? He was on the floor, and it actually was the instructions for Noah to build the ark. So these things are recorded all throughout history. So that is an interesting experiment to set up, and that's like what happened with me, and I think you had a thing where you said, I want proof. So that I would recommend that. Let's set up the rocks or, whatever. Set out your altar with your little figurines on it and say, okay, if this is really happening, let me move these, or you move them, but give me some kind of proof. And they usually will deliver you some kind of proof. But be aware when you ask for it. The one time I asked for proof, I woke up with deep scratches going from my buttocks, my right buttocks, all the way up to my left shoulder. And then I said, well, what was that about? And then I was led to a book, I think it was by Turner, or her name was Turner, or something. One of the doctors that was doing the research back in the 90s. And in that book, she said that she and her husband woke up and they had these deep V-shaped scratches, and they connected with the reptilians. And I went, oh my goodness, I thought I was only being taken by the Greys, and there it was. In the 1990s, I had the proof that I'd asked for, and these scratches took a good 4 months to disappear. They were very, very deep, and they were a little bit painful. So I hope I answered the question.
I know 3 people who have tried that little rock theory on their nightstand or their dresser, and 3 people have had them moved after they have suspected they have been taken.
Well, it wouldn't work well with me because we have cats, so I'd have to think of something else. They go, oh, rocks, woo-woo. Knock them on the floor, yeah.
You could put them under glass, Janet.
Yeah, something under glass, something bigger. So that for years I was obsessed with dragons. Unless you have another question. You ready to move to the next thing?
I was going to ask you about the dragons.
Okay. So for years I had dragons everywhere. I read the Dragon Raiders of Pern. I bought these 2 beautiful detailed dragon sculptures, but they were very heavy. So what did I move with me when I moved from Pennsylvania to the Hawaiian Islands in 1993 but my dragons? When you think back on it, it's like, what? You're taking dragons? It's very expensive to ship them. Of all your things you're taking dragons. So I carried these dragons with me for years. When I was on Johnston Atoll in December of 95, I was picked up out of my bed by 6 Greys who carried me like a surfboard. I screamed. They took me to the edge of the beach, and they brought down my boyfriend from the other direction. He was fussing, screaming, and they set us down the beach, and then we finally calmed down, and it was almost like we were hypnotized at that point. But I was conscious, and so we walked into like a little beam craft that was sitting on the beach, and we launched out into the past the coral reef into this deep part of. You can see Johnston Atoll if you Google it. It's got a really dark area. It looks like an aircraft carrier. It's an atoll, and they kind of made it into a man-made island, or the attitude, and they made it in the shape of a aircraft carrier, and then they made a big landing field in it. So it was a military base where they disposed of chemical weapons, and in 1995 I joined my boyfriend there, and I was civilian working for the military. But he left, and I ended up getting another boyfriend, and it was the second boyfriend that we were both taken to this underwater, ground installation. The top part of the installation was a, kind of a human man-made formation, and there was a table where they had him sit on the table, and he was laying down on the table, and they did the standard examination. And I was sitting on a chair about 5-6 feet away, and he was surrounded by the 3 different sizes of the various gray species. One was a very short species, about 4 feet tall. The second one was about 5.5 feet tall. And those are the ones that carried me. And then there was it was almost like a gray kind of mantis hybrid. It didn't quite look gray, but it was, like you said, the tall, thin being, very, very thin. It almost seems like they couldn't, their bodies couldn't support those heads, right? But there was this tall, thin being. And then as I was sitting in this chair, I started getting telepathic communication, and I was instructed to go over into the corner of the room, and there was a gown, a very beautiful green gown with all kinds of jewels in the fabric itself, and it looked like something out of Henry VIII's court, or even maybe more ancient, a very beautiful gown, like I was going to a ball. So I put it on, and then the shoes were even more magical looking. Kind of reminded me, I almost chuckled like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, but they were full of all kinds of gems in the material itself. Couldn't quite figure out how it was constructed, but I put them on, and they were all functional. So I was instructed to start walking downwards through this corridor, and as I started going down, every footstep I made, I floated. I would kind of just launch forward about 10 feet. Every time I moved my foot forward, I would be gliding about 10 feet. And the reason for that was, here comes the Annunaki. So behind me, as I kind of floated down this hallway, these doorways would open on the right side of me, and then I would see a large Annunaki. First they were kind of shadowed, and then they'd come out in the light, and they were super beautiful, super enhanced, handsome, like you would describe an angel. They were just radiant, they were shining, and they kept getting taller. So the first ones that came out were about 6 feet tall. And I realized they did that so they wouldn't shock me. So eventually, as I kept moving downward into the caverns, they became, natural formations of caverns. These taller and taller Annunaki, male and female, and they were all dressed like they were going to a ball. It was like eyes wide shut, but it was like fancy gowns and fancy, costumes, and the ones at the end were probably between 12 and 15 feet tall, and we finally got to a huge cavern where we all gathered, and I asked telepathically how many are here. They said 1,000. There was a beam of light, and I couldn't see where it was originating from, but it was shining on the floor, and it was in front of this huge obsidian wall that was very shiny and different than the other walls around. And as we were going down this hallway, they were communicating, is this the day? Is she the one? Is she the key? And I was so confused, like, what are they talking about? But when I got down there and I stood in this light, the obsidian wall dissolved, and beyond the wall there were these feet, and we started to crane our necks to see what looked like a giant, almost dinosaur beast, and that being projected itself down into an avatar form and stood right in front of me. So we were looking into each other's eyes, and so I'm about 5'2", so it was about 5'2", so we could literally look at each other in the eyes. But she was a dragon. It was a representation of what she really looked like. And at that point, we all started talking telepathically at once. But what was amazing is that I could understand what each individual conversation was, and they were asking questions, and I was like the hub of a supercomputer, and the questions and answers were flying through me. And I had no idea how I did that or what that was about. I don't recall right now in this mind. I think it's too much to recall exactly, but there was just a lot of information conveyed, and then everything stopped, and I was taken back up to the upper facility, and my boyfriend and I were taken back to our bunkers on Johnson Atoll and deposited in our separate beds. When I was kind of plopped down, it was almost rude, into my bed, I heard this like by my ear, and then I was paralyzed until they left. You can feel them coming and going because it's like a barometer drops and the air pressure drops. It's a very distinct change in the environment when they come and go. So when they left, finally I was released from this very short paralysis, and I laid there for no more than 30 seconds, and then the alarm went off. They returned me right before the alarm went off, and I had to go to work, and I was actually very pissed off. But I shared with my boyfriend later, and he had he was allowed to retain his memory of the entire experience, and I at one point thought, oh, that couldn't be real, but he, confirmed it with me, and we shared all these details. We did for a couple of years, and then I lost touch with him. So there is a dragon, and she told me that she is our mother, that even though she doesn't look anything like us, that our DNA runs within her, and hers runs within us, and we are her children. So that was the message she gave me that I recall, and I know there's more, but it will come when it's time for me to remember more details.
That is really interesting indeed. Do you think there was just symbolism behind the dragon, or do you believe that it was actual truth?
No, this was a being that I saw. Now, of course, none of us can ever know what is the truth and what's real, because there's continual things out there like mind control and manipulations. We're in a holographic universe where we're mind controlled to believe that this whole thing is real in the first place, that the Earth is how it is, and that that things are solid. So, to the best of my ability, from what I kind of put things through my senses, right? And if something's true and it'll pan out as true, it'll be validated by other things and third parties and other conversations and information. I get like the goosebumps and the hair standing on up my back, right? So this, to me, it was not anything other than truth. And when my boyfriend validated, that was profound, but I'm sure there's more information. I actually have contacted some people from Johnson Atoll, and I posted it on Facebook, and they said, yeah, we had experiences there too. I haven't been able to really correlate it 100%, but I've had some validation. Okay. Next thing, you have another question? Do you have somewhere else you want to go?
Well, you know what? I did want to go over to Dr. Sasha to talk about the Battle of the Weddell Sea.
Okay, cool. When the Nazis were giving up, they were smuggling their elite from a whole bunch of different places, from Africa and from Argentina and so forth, to a base that they had established in the late 30s and early 40s, in a great big entrance near the South Pole in Antarctica. And they had been allowed to settle there by an ancient civilization, the Bodlanders, who had been there for a long time. And so Byrd took an entire armada with a seaplane tender, the Pine Island, Marines, and lots of seaplanes. And the Brits had tried to seal up this entrance. They knew they called it New Schwabenland, that the Nazis had been given shelter there, and that the Germanic people that had been gone in there long ago, the Bodlanders were ultimately Germans, but there was other German settlements too, the 6 New Saxony settlements, and a great big place inside the earth. And so Byrd and his guys came with a 3-pronged attack, and out of the cave flew the anti-grav craft. Now, the Nazis had developed the anti-grav class, but this was really advanced craft. It was the Bodlanders, and they shot down several planes. They killed 64 Marines. They sunk the Pine Island, and Byrd retreated. And the Joint Chiefs of the United States, together with our allies in Canada and the Brits, were aghast. My gosh, we don't have anything that moves like that. but we did have some help because the people from Serpo had been snooping on the our Los Alamos nuclear facility to see what we were up to. They were and they had deliberately crash landed some craft, and there was actually a survival in an accidental craft by Kingman, Arizona. And it turned out that our scientists were able to communicate with a mothership, and they sent an ambassador. They said they'd make an exchange, and somebody from MJ12 has leaked all this stuff. It's well documented in Journey to Serpo. And so they sent an ambassador, plus we had our genius, a guy named Caldwell, who had been working on anti-grav craft anyway. And so they put all this together. They had a laboratory in Area Set 51 in a place up in British Columbia. And so we, in time, developed our own anti-grav craft, and so the Nazis didn't attack us, and they were under command of the Botlanders anyway to not pursue the war anymore. And the Germans that are living there now basically are a peaceful lot. They go to our universities. But in the meantime, right after the war, Alan Dulles, who was a Nazi supervisor, by Operation Paperclip, brought over the worst Nazis who programmed the kids at Montauk, did terrible, terrible things, and infiltrated our CIA. So Kennedy had established the Defense Information Agency with a mandate after 25 years to make this journey to Serpo that 12 Americans made, and most of them survived. Some of them stayed the rest of their lives there. Some came back here. And they basically gave us the anti-grav craft, which is all part of the conspiracy. We've had way developed anti-grav craft for some time. They showed us how to make the skin right, how to make the different craft go. And so we have a huge clandestine military with bases on Mars and bases and lots of stuff on the moon. We've seen so much actual documentation by an astronaut who is a whistleblower, whom I regressed, who actually has the untouched lunar photographs that show the vast development there. Plus, I've seen Bob Dean's stuff that he got from the Russian cosmonaut. We've got stuff going in space. And going back to the earliest question you asked me about what is this about disclosure and why are they so finicky about not doing it, it's because it isn't just about the ET presence, but it's the fact that they've been withholding things that could save millions of lives, information, hoarding it for the rich and powerful, and they've perpetrated mass murder and false flags all over the planet. So that's what's inhibiting disclosure, in my opinion.
Then I just want to... Go ahead, you have a question, but I wanted to add something when you're done.
No, please, go right ahead.
Okay, so with the passing in the Bureau, many species had to go underground. So we have periods where we're living above ground and then going underground. So we think that maybe the dinosaurs all got eradicated, but there's stories that there may be some of these species that are no longer existing above ground or underground. So apparently the reptilian in its smallest form, is about the same size as humans, but they're giant sized, like the dragons that we see or the dinosaurs that we are familiar with, because those bones are up here. There's also stories of 35-foot high human skeletons that have been uncovered, and you see them all over the internet if you just go look at giant skeletons, right? So if you correlate all that information together, that's another reason why I think that the dragons are real. They're on all these buildings and all these art. Just go to Google and say dragon pictures, and you'll get page after page of dragons. You have all the stories of dragons. You have the Annunaki are known as the secret dragon societies. There was a movie called, when I met Dr. Lessin, he says, that sounds like Ender's Game. Well, Ender's Game is the story, ultimately, the character encounters the dragon, which is the mother of all of their species. And then finally, and I haven't seen this yet, somebody said, when I told them my story, they said, your story's just like Jupiter Ascending. And I said, okay, so I've tried to watch it it bombed on Netflix or whatever it was, Amazon. I tried to watch it, so I've got to eventually order it and watch it. They said Jupiter Ascending apparently has some kind of reptilians or dragons within it too. So correlate all this information. Why are dragons so prominent in our society? Are they a myth? No. I think that you just got to go look at it from a different perspective. They're everywhere. They're from the gargoyles, which are little mini dragons, all the way up to the large dragons that are represented in our lore, and the dinosaurs. They're kind of like a dinosaur.
And some of these things are, of course, their spacecraft. We know that in the Mayan area, Thoth, or Quetzalcoatl, as he was known there, Cuckoo-Clan, is often shown coming out of a serpent, a flying serpent, and then we get the same thing in China. This is like their space, like the Klingon birds. Was their spacecraft. In this one famous thing, they have the jaguar, which means the night in Mayan, is swallowing the serpent, which is Thoth's spaceship, and there you see his face coming out of it.
I have a quick question for you, Janet, from Gloria in the SOR Space Travelers Room on Facebook. She is asking, is there a connection between your dragon, Janet, and the dragon of Revelation 12?
Tell me about Revelation 12. Do you have it? I don't have my Bible.
I don't have
I'm not exactly familiar.
I have every book around me except a Bible, which is weird.
Yeah, I have one somewhere in my office, but I'm in the living room. So I'll ask Gloria to tell us more about Revelation. Well, Revelations is the final book, right? Yeah. So, yes. There might be a connection there. I'll have to. Oh, here, I've got the internet. Let me see if I can pull it up. Revelation 12. There may be.
I'm doing the exact same thing as you are right now. The woman and the dragon, a great sign.
Oh my goodness. Okay, the woman and the dragon. Okay.
I'll quickly read it here for our audience. A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its head. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth so that it might devour her child the moment it was born. She gave birth to a son, a male child, who will rule all the nations with an iron scepter. And her child was snatched up by God and to his throne. The woman fled into the wilderness to a place prepared for her by God, where she might be taken care of for 1,260 days. So
okay, and then war broke out in heaven, and they fought. And Michael and his angels fought against the dragon.
Yeah,
and the dragon and his angels fought back.
Sounds like the celestial battle. And this is the movement of planets when Nibiru entered the inner solar system.
All I can say is John had some really powerful acid when he was doing Revelations or something. He was interpreting it through his concepts back then, and I've read Revelations. I read in 1970. I read the late great Planet Earth, and I've always been trying to figure out what in the world's going on. But I channel everything through kind of like the Annunaki, and I don't have a real good answer for that one. I have to think about it.
Well, you know,
sorry about that.
We're going to hop out for our break here at the bottom of the hour. It's our final break of the night. Dr. Sasha Lessin, his wife Janet Lessin, joining us. They are taking part in the Alien Cosmic Expo, happening June 24th through 26th in Brantford, Ontario. It's a long flight from Hawaii to Ontario. I think about 9 hours, maybe 10. It's a long one, but they're going to do it for you, the alien experiencers. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back after this.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio?
Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us.
From the radio, commercials, to banners, to social media.
Have a product you'd like our host to endorse? We can do that too.
Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry.
Right here, this is where we divulge the fruit of our research. Here on the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on Spaced Out Radio.
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners, for only $5 a month you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where two members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Missed most of tonight's show? Don't worry, you didn't miss a thing. You can head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and download our archives for free. And don't forget to get your Space Travelers membership today. Now, back to tonight's show. Final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. We've rounded third. We're heading for home. Thank you so much for you tuning in on the SHR Media Network, on Paranormal Forum Online, the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, and on Facebook at Euphoria Chronicles, Forest Moon Paranormal, and our flagship SOR Space Travelers. Good to have you with us tonight. Tomorrow night on the show, we're sticking back in the alien world. It's the Alien Connection with Samantha Mowat. She returns for her monthly segment tomorrow night. I'm sure you will enjoy her views on ETs and whatever else we can conjure up. Remember, you can always follow us on social media at Space Out Radio on Twitter, on Facebook at Space Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website, spacedoutradio.com. We bring in for the final time tonight Dr. Sasha Lessin, his wife Janet Lessin. They are taking part in the Alien Cosmic Expo, which happens in 2 weeks' time, June February. Where the hell did February come from? June 24th to 26th in Brantford, Ontario. Highly suggest you try and check it out if you're on the East Coast. Dr. Sasha and Janet, welcome back for the final time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're glad to be here. We're having fun.
Well, I'm glad you are. Because you're heading to a disclosure expo and symposium, I would like to get into a little bit of disclosure with you guys. And Dr. Sasha, we'll start with you on this one.
Okay.
Earlier in the show, you had mentioned that, basically what is disclosure? Is it saying aliens are real, aliens are out there, but they haven't come to Earth, or whatever it is? But it opens up, if disclosure does happen, it opens up a real Pandora's box, not only for the people who will be affected, which is every single person on this planet, but for what governments have been hiding as well. Do you think that disclosure is a good or bad thing to happen, if it does?
I think it's inevitable, and it's happening now, and it's a really good thing. I was sad to see Dennis Kucinich knocked out of the race as a fool and a crazy person because he told the truth about his contact. But things have turned around, and I don't think the question is. I think the real question that now people are not being laughed at, and they don't get kicked out of the presidential journalist room for asking it is, was the president briefed on the ET issue? And they haven't been able to deny that. So now Hillary, with little hints from John Podesta, who's probably done all these groups to see if it's a hot issue, has teased people with a little bit of this stuff, ETs. But you remember, the president is the person who can say things are classified or not classified based on national security and her or his assessment of what national security is. And so you can be sure that when you get disclosure, you'll get more disclosure of more lies and partial truths. And, the real disclosure that's coming on is from all the experiencers and the whistleblowers, each of which have a piece of the elephant of reality, and they're talking it up, and so that the President Obama has a choice. If it looks like Trump's going to get in, he can be the hero to do it, or if it's his person and it's Hillary, the anointed one, Killary, I guess I can call her, she's a warmonger, then he'll let her do it. But they're pushing for it, and unless there's martial law declared because ISIS has dropped a dirty bomb on somewhere in North America, it's moving toward disclosure, but don't count on them not making a false flag. And what they would disclose is millions stolen kickbacks and millions of people murdered and people sent to foolish wars just to protect the economic interests of the people that pay for the people that are in Washington. You know how it goes.
Do you think, though, that the public is ready for disclosure? Because, like
Absolutely.
I mentioned, see, I disagree with you. And I'm not trying to start an argument here. And the reason why I disagree with that theory is because I look at how crazy people are right now on this planet. And if we open up that Pandora's box that the government is lying to us, think of the lawsuits that will happen from everybody who has had an abduction that the government may have known about. The technology that has killed people. This could bankrupt the country because the United States is a suing type country. And I could see this totally backfiring if the words national security are not involved.
It's got to be balanced by some kind of truth and reconciliation that you're not. Kissinger and others who have said is, will you let our people go? Without killing them for all the murders they perpetrated. And I think that's probably the only way. You've got to give these monstrous criminals some kind of ability to skate in order to get the truth. We know that, for example, Roosevelt had when he found out about extraterrestrials and actually talked to some extraterrestrials. He was very gung-ho. The public must know. And they said, well, let's do an experiment first. And the people that wanted to keep everything hush-hush basically hired Orson Welles to put on H.G. Wells' thing, and they made it so that there would be a major upset from disclosure. All of this was to impress Roosevelt, and he was impressed. He said, yeah, I guess you're right. We better not tell him the truth. I think that the truth is going to prevent, even though there's going to be chaos and a reorganization, and pre-Eugene has shown that it's the perturbations that can allow us to move into a higher level, even though there's going to be a lot of disturbance. That's better than more murders, than us going into foreign countries and destabilizing them so they become failed states that threaten the entire a life force of everybody on this planet. The truth is a lot better than all these false wars that get our boys and other people killed. We've got to stop these wars. We've got to stop. The truth will set us free, but first it'll make us mad and upset as hell.
It'll piss us off. Yeah, we got over Santa Claus, and we're a very adaptable species. And so this will be a whole global planetary reset of all things, how our governance works, how our disease. There's cures for all diseases. We have 100,000 people a day, approximately, that die from things that are preventable, from diseases that are cures. We have cures for the disease of aging. Right now, we talked to Dr. Aubrey de Grey, who has no knowledge whatsoever of this ET stuff. He's just a scientist. Our scientists already discovered that ways that we can live to be 1,000. Right now, human beings can live to be 1,000. The other half, he said half of all people alive now can live to be 1,000 with this new paradigm. He was about 10 years away from it being released. So imagine living to be 1,000. 100,000 a day are dying from things that are curable. And then the other thing is our technologies will be more advanced, and we'll stop flying around in antiquated, buses and trains and planes and ships. So there's other ways of traveling. We have teleportation. We have time travel. I don't think time travel will become as readily available, but teleportation is something that's very, that we're already using it in our secret military. So the alternative is, like Sasha said, this continuing state of war and destroying our planet, and we've got to get off it, and that means a whole other paradigm, and it'll be more like a Star Trekian, probably even better than that, because the extraterrestrials are poised, ready to come down. And they're not going to come and take over, and we're still going to have our decisions. This is Alex Collier, another contactees that are interacting with extraterrestrials. Plus, we have information from the Linkage Institute from A.R. Borden, who was having ongoing, monthly meetings with the Annunaki and various species about how to reconstruct our planet so we can move from a level 0 civilization to a level 1 and then some. And that will be a conscious, civilized civilization where all life is respected, where everybody has a basic minimum needs economy, where they get a place to live, and it can live with dignity, grace, beauty, and peace. And no one goes hungry, no one's on the street, exposed to the environment. So get ready for this new paradigm. I've seen it on the ship, and I selected it. And we're going to it. It's the age of Aquarius. And we're going to be fine. We're all going to be just fine.
There's a lot of people with machine guns and a Bible who won't believe that statement.
Well, you know how they did it in the day the Earth was still, the one from 1951? Everything got neutralized. None of the weapons worked. It's very easy for them to do that. None of the weapons will work.
They've stopped nuclear exchanges several times already.
That I have heard. Have heard in regards to it, because in the end, from what I have heard, the Anunnaki will not allow us to blow ourselves up. They will not allow us to self-destruct and hit that button. And when tests have gone on or that button has been pushed in other situations, they've actually shot the missiles down.
That's right.
So I don't think they're going to let us really do any great harm to it. We're going to wake up. Here's what happened to me in February. I'm over in Arizona. I went to the convention there, International UFO Congress, and I'm staying at my friend's house. And 2 nights in a row, I have the same type downloaded. What happens is they come, first they're seen all over the planet, everywhere, simultaneously by everybody. So there will be no room for doubt, because everybody will see at least some kind of ship somewhere, even over the little small town or out in the country. They know where every human being is. They have that tracking ability, just like they did in Star Trek. They come and they beam down into wherever, like in my vision, they came right down by the courthouse, and they just set up a big stadium type thing. They can construct anything they want anywhere, anytime, and they just constructed it, and the people started gathering into the auditorium, and then they appeared in front of me, and then they sent out a gift to each person, which was individualistic to their who they were and identified them. And when they put on this gift, like a t-shirt or a ring or whatever, they opened it up. They had an instant DMT activation. Guess what happens when you get a DMT activation? You remember who you are. Everybody remembered we're all family, we're all one, and we got over it. We got beyond it, and we went into a state of this loving oneness, and we went into a new civilization, because we have to. We're destroying this planet. It's not going to be around much longer. We'll have an Earth. There's a book called Earth Without Us. Yeah, we'll have the Earth without us. So I don't think we really want to destroy this human form, which is the end result of a genetic experiment that's been going on for millions and millions of years. I think the Annunaki and other beings out there have invested too much in this product, the human being, the Homo sapiens sapien. And I don't know what they're calling the next level when they hybridize us with other species, but they're totally invested in us, and we are too valuable. And in many ways, we're more evolved than they are, because we do have that emotional capability that they lack.
It is heavy. Lisa is wondering in the Space Out Radio chat room on Spreaker if extraterrestrials do believe and participate in the afterlife.
Absolutely. They, when they're in this dimension, they go through a series of lives where they get to study scripts or samskaras, bring before them after each life those whom they've harmed and those who harmed them, to see what is karmic script they're enacting, and what they've learned from it, and they have another incarnation until they've learned all there is about other. What is other? The other is disowned self. You're all of it, and that's what you ultimately get to. And when you're ready to do that, you transcend this level of consciousness.
I understand that, but let's face it, over the last number of years, there has been a lot of fear-mongering in regards to extraterrestrials. And if you believe that Russian CIA book that was found a number of years ago, which explains the different species that have come to Earth, and there's also a paragraph or two in there that places like Hollywood and video game manufacturers have been told by the government to start including aliens, but put them in a negative light, a negative context. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that has been happening in order to prepare for disclosure, number one, but number two, that if we keep the fear in the public eye, that disclosure really will be what man or the government wants it to be, and not what humanity says it should be?
Oh, I think the latter is obvious. The power always tries to co-opt whatever is coming down that might subvert it and use it for its own purposes, to sell you their beer and their taxes.
Yeah, we have this last faction that's trying to, get as much fear, and they feed on our fear, so they're just trying to maximize the fear. They keep us in their reality, their paradigm. And so it's kind of like that one Star Trek episode where the little globe was walking around, floating in space while the Klingons and the humans were fighting each other, and eventually you noticed this little spear-like being, and it was getting brighter when they were angry at each other, and it would get dull when they weren't fighting, so they kept them fighting and fighting so they could feed off it. Finally they looked up and they noticed it, and they said, "Ha, we see what you're doing, and we're not going to let you do that. We're not going to let you manipulate us anymore." So we've got to stop feeding. And okay, turn off the televisions. Don't watch about Orlando. There's already people saying that that's a false flag thing. Stop participating in the fear. Change the channel, change the highway, shift, and you'll have your reality just shift. And then stop watching all these movies. They're stupid anyway. It's called fear porn. Just a bunch of fear porn. So, do you like the reality? Keep watching it, but if you don't like it, shift it.
The function of fear is to see what you need to attend to be safe and secure, not to be neurotic about it. As Caesar said, you can die many times if you're in perpetual fear. And I think that what really makes people free is to not be afraid of dying anymore. Just live every moment you're alive and experience your death when you die, and you'll find out the next thing, or you won't.
No, and that makes complete sense in regards to what you were saying. But I look at the people who I talk to on this show. I read the comments from people who are chatting in our chat rooms, and I still don't think people are ready. Now, granted, I'm only seeing a select few, but I also believe, and I talked to Victor Vigiani about this when he was on the show back on June 2nd, I also strongly believe that there is a major difference between the extraterrestrial experience that is happening in the United States compared to what is happening in Canada and other countries who may or may not have made a deal, so to speak, which would be Humans for Technology. And when I hear a lot of Canadians speak, and Victor was actually shocked when I brought this up, and he more or less agreed with me that there may be something to this, that it almost seems like the countries that have had a deal with extraterrestrials, aliens or humans for technology, it seems the experiences and the attitude when it comes to extraterrestrials is of a negative connotation. Yet the countries where abductions and contact are happening with species of aliens that do not have a deal, i.e. Canada, i.e. Brazil, i.e. Portugal, who has released UFO files, the experiences seem to be a lot more pleasant, a lot more spiritual, a lot more open-minded. And have you ever noticed anything like that?
I've noticed that, in my study of history that it's shifted. At one point, the extraterrestrials, when they were afraid the Nazis were going to win, they absolutely decided that they would come in on the side of the Allies, and they did not trust Joseph Stalin. And toward the very end of his tenure, Roosevelt had become virtually insane and made terrible deals with Stalin to give him huge things. The idea was there was going to be United Nations, and Roosevelt was going to be the first world leader, and Stalin was going to be number two. And Roosevelt died before he could pull off this terrible deal. And thank God we got a sane president, Harry Truman, who said that I don't trust this Joseph Stalin. But for a long time, the ETs had hoped that the United States and Canada and Britain were possible human groups that could have a loving society where people's consciousness was respected, and they absolutely did not trust the Russians, and they did not trust the Nazis, and then they no longer trusted the United States. You just got Mr. Trudeau. I think things might be getting really good in Canada.
Well, if he would finally concentrate on something that is happening on our soils rather than everywhere else, I think Canadians would be a lot more happy. It's funny because, he's throwing money around the world left, right, and center, and yet we have fires up in Fort McMurray that destroy a town. We have other things going on, and it just seems like it's not there. It's really weird. It's like he's forgotten. Wow. It's like he's forgotten the West, much like his father did when he was in power of the country back in the late 60s, 70s, and 80s.
That's terrible. He isn't taking effective action and the things that really need to be done right away.
Well, you know what? He's more interested in bringing a multicultural love to Canada, which I think is important. However, I know he received a lot of backlash from many Canadians in regards to Syrians, refugees coming in. And I'll get a little political with that. My only complaint about that was I agree that everybody deserves to live in a free country and a free society, but why are we moving them 15,000 miles around the world when nobody has explained to me why there is 3 million empty shelters for refugees in Saudi Arabia that are untattered? There is the other 4 rich Muslim nations that have not accepted a single refugee. Why is it the West issue when the Quran says you're supposed to help your own? So that's my own issue on that. I just want that explanation. I have no problem with them coming to Canada. I have none whatsoever. In fact, a lot of the refugees, when the fires happened in Fort McMurray, donated a lot of money, time, and resources that they were given from their adopted land. So there are good people there. But it just makes me wonder. On the flip side, we have about 1 minute left.
Oh my goodness.
I would love it if you guys took that full minute, explained your website, what you're going to be talking about at the Alien Cosmic Expo in Brantford, Ontario, June 24th through the 26th.
Okay, so we have we have a lot of websites, but our major one is EnkieSpeaks.com, and Dr. Lessin works that every day, and he researches the Annunaki and then some, and he's correlating all this information, and I help him with that as well. And AquarianRadio.com, we put all of our shows, and I help take the link for this one here on the show. At the Alien Cosmic Expo, we're going to be part of the Experiencers Day on Friday, which we're going to try to take it to another level. I've been to a lot of experiencers groups, and we got some ideas on how to coordinate this one. So it's going to be the best ever, and create a new paradigm for how to do experiencers group, that we can take our experiencers deeper into their own processes and get more and more information. Let me do this real quick. And then Saturday we're doing an Annunaki presentation, and on Sunday we're doing a presentation on the dragon at the end of time. And Dr. Lessin, you got the last 30 seconds.
Okay, experiencers out there, it's time for you to speak up. You have nothing to lose but false shame, because you can be proud. You are on the leading edge of freeing humanity. Tell your truth.
Right, so there's a need to be heard, a need to tell, and we invite you to come over and talk to us. There's going to be about 5 or 6 different facilitators, maybe more, and we're here for you so you can share what your experiences are. And Disclosure Day is Saturday morning, I think it is.
Absolutely.
With a bunch of wonderful people like Stephen Bassett and Grant Cameron and Victor Vigiani and et cetera, et cetera.
It's going to be a good
Paul Hellyer, yes. It's going to be good.
It's going to be fantastic. Dr. Sasha Lessin, Janet Lessin, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. I'll get you guys to hold on for a moment while I close down the show for a Monday night. Well, it's just early evening for you. I'm 2 minutes away from tomorrow. So I'm going to put you guys on hold. I want to thank Dr. Lessin and Janet Lessin for coming on the show tonight. Thank everyone listening in on the SHR Media Network, over on Paranormal Forum, on the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, and of course, all of you on Facebook in Forest Moon Paranormal, Euphoria Chronicles, and our flagship, SOR Space Travelers. Remember, tonight's password, courtesy of Bill Cardwell in the SOR Space Travelers, was extraterrestriophiliac. What it means, I don't know. He just comes up with them. He's a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. You just can't trust them Maple Leaf fans, I could tell you that. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website, having a new look very soon, is spacedoutradio.com. Tomorrow night on the show, Samantha Mowat joins us. We're the Alien Connection with Samantha. You'll love it. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time, we kick things off. And our music man, Ron Bumblefoot THAL. Bumblefoot rocking us out tonight, as we will talk to you in exactly 21 hours from now. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks for participating. Always a lot of fun with you. We give it to Bumblefoot to take us on out. Here we go. Get your horns ready. Get your fingers ready. Time to start rock and or rolling. Mr. Bumblefoot, take it away. Good night.
I know you're out there somewhere. This is the new totalitarian state. 1,000 eyes are waiting for you to break. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you